Welcome to Nevermind the Furthermore. Wait a minute, this music isn't right, the scene isn't right. Hang on. That's more like it. And now it's time for the show for all creatives. Nevermind the Furthermore. Your source for conversation, inspiration, and fun. With your host, Nicholas Anthony Tockert. He's an artist, a writer, a swordsman, and a game designer. He knows how to use the sword and axe in historical battles without anybody getting hurt too much. He's also the Manatee Man, master of marketing. And he may even have a guest or two. One thing, though, to be certain. Just don't call him a cryptid. With that, it's about time for the show. So sit back, enjoy, and have some coffee and chat with us.
Good morning, Nevermornings. I'm your host with the most, Mr. Nicholas Anthony Tockert, coming at you over the airways on WNTF. Nevermind the Furthermore. Now, before we get into the lovely ladies that are here, I have to pay a few bills. So it'll just take a brief moment. We're made possible by a generous donation from Joey Bachman over at bit.ly/JBTechApps, and of course, the Indie Creator Directory, where for a very low cost, you can have a wonderful setup for getting your presence online in such a way that you won't be deplatformed, and you can find small creators like these lovely folks whom you can hire and contact to network with people who will actually network. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So please consider becoming a part. Right now, your sign-on fees go directly to supporting Amy Hale, who, due to a lack of insurance during the long, dark tea time of the soul that we all went through 2020, has incurred a $30,000 plus medical bill. So while I normally run my usual links promoting myself, we're going to run the GoFundMe.com/F for Love for the Hales. That way it's there. Now, I will not be running many, if any, ads because we do have guests and I want to give them as much of the time and screen time as humanly possible. We're joined again by Aunt Donna Carleen and by Dawn. So, ladies, why don't you introduce yourselves and tell folks who you are and why you're awesome. We'll start with Donna.
Hello there, I'm Donna Carleen. I am a writer at large, as it says. I have several books out, 12 right now, and about any kind of book that you'd like to read. I have what we call clean books. I have what we call dirty books. I'm available at lulu.com, and you're going to have to choose the explicit to see 4 of the books. Yeah. Oops. How about you, Don?
I actually help a writer. Her name is Michaela Jade. She couldn't be here today because she's got family obligations. But I kind of been trying to help her with a little bit of marketing, getting her name out there, helping her and then some other people as well. So
okay. Now, what people don't know is you're sort of a guerrilla marketer. I think is a good way of putting it. What you do is the kind of promotion that's done on the side, on the slide, and a bit on the down low. And that means you're my favorite kind of people because I do love the people who hang out in the liminal space between notoriety, especially those who are doing so to help. So, and you guys should all know me by now, author, artist, sword master, game designer, and retired paranormal consultant, as well as blessed lunatic. But what I wanted to do today is, instead of my usual shenaniganry, which I know y'all love shenaniganry, I wanted to get some of the lady authors I know and creatives in the field together to talk about the challenges that are there, how you overcome them, your perspective. Because, in part, not too long ago, I was told that as an old white male in America, I have this stuff called privilege. And if I do indeed have some privilege mojo, the best I can figure to do with it is to provide a platform and be like, here you go. So I'm going to be scrolling through the chat real quick, because I know as a guest, it's not easy to see and manage the chat. And then we'll go to any questions people have, and then I'll fire off some questions best I can. I am losing my voice, so I will hold out as long as I can. But I know if I get these ladies running, I will be able to rest. That's part of the benefit of this show. And yes, it's a man who knows how to shut up. We do exist. We are capable of it.
Oh, you mean you're married?
20 years and counting. I am trained. Okay.
Trained is always good.
We've got Good Morning Hump Day. We're joined by Brian K. Morris.
Hi,
the man,
hi,
the
Brian. You can.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. When you do, another Chinese weather balloon gets shot down. You know what? I mean, at least it's entertainment. We'll take that. And we've got Donna's greeting people, because she has to just be an overachiever. Carl's greeting people. Hey, Whitman, dude. Yes, is the weather balloon now the new Angel Gets Its Wings? And I'm sorry, when I saw this, all I could hear was, in the arms of an angel. And, like the balloon falling slowly because, who cares? Tries to imagine what havoc's going on in Nick T's NTF green room this morning. It was spicy. I didn't think they could do that, but okay. People got booted out by the system. It's been colorful, to say the least. And Carl saying his accountability, which we were on Tidbits and Scribbles, posted a video on how books are printed bound. It did an ad for Donna's books, which we may play later if you guys want to see it, but you got to ask. You got to ask. If you ask Donna if she wants you to see her ad, you got to ask nice. I'm not saying you got to
take bribes too.
I'm in a mood and I have a fever, so it's going to be delightful. Also, warning, I had to wear Calvin down this morning, but he's in the mood and might appear on camera today. And we've got no havoc. Okay, we're greeted. Hi, Blue Teddy. And Dawn's here. Everybody double taps. I love it. We got Grant and Rich and
Rich
and Kelly. Yeah, I thought Kelly was going to be here. Now let me make sure, because I thought I sent her a link.
I tagged her in the.
I was going to say, I told her to go check her Facebook Messenger.
Well, what I can do is I'll re-invite her right now. And while I'm doing that, Donna, what's your accountability for the day?
I ain't no account. Let me tell you. I got up. I got coffee. I mean, it's too early to really have too much accountability. Haven't written a thing in almost a year. Yeah, that's about it. How about you, Don? What have you done?
I would say one thing you are accountable for is you keep us going with your wit and humor and everything. So you are rising tide. So
yes, she is. And I love this. Well, I'm not putting out anything marketable, but multiple times a week she's in chats and she's in things booing people and buoying, not booing. Although I'm sure there's some booing too. There's no read between the lines going in the green room. It never happens. But
it happened one night. Well, if I'm not doing anything for myself, I might as well be doing something for my friends and the people I believe in.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So and you are. That's what I spend a lot of my time just bouncing ads to people and trying to support folks and being the guy in the chair. Not for the tech stuff. I have people like that. Bless you, Joe Bachman. But
Got Joe for.
seriously, bless you, because technology hates me the way dice hate him. It's just we have a very symbiotic relationship. But sorry, my brain is a little scrambled. But when you're helping people and you're doing good in the universe, even if it's not fiscally sound, it's still very much, it builds things up and it comes back around. Because right now Brian isn't doing much broadcasting, but he is so well known and he's done so much for so many, and then he pops up on this ongoing telethon. So, like, Don, I want to talk to you because both of us have some pretty heavy biological limitations. We'll put it that
Mhm.
way. How does that
Get
affect
my
your?
accountability.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask how that affects your accountability, but I
Oh,
was just, and what your accountability is, because it might be different than some people expect.
well, I said I do have some health issues. I have one of the biggest is RA in my spine, so that's not always a lot of fun. So like today, I posted something on Michaela's page. I'm here, so accountability is just getting up and keeping going a lot of days.
Right.
Listening to my body, knowing that when I finish this, I probably will end up having to take a little bit of a nap, but that is what it is.
I'm totally not planning on feeding my son, putting him on Minecraft, and possibly taking a nap. That is not my whole day goal at all. So yeah.
Uh,
So
so
no,
yeah,
but yeah, go on.
so it varies day to day of what I can do, and I can wake up and think I'm going to do this, and my body's going to say, no, you're not. So it is
Mm-hmm.
what it is. So
I'm just scrolling through the comics. I am listening to you, but
no, I know.
That's fine.
yes, Kelly, you were invited. Oh, the message I sent you another one today, and you're in a group chat.
She
I
she
think you
said
may be.
later that her laptop is slow, but she's working on it.
Oh, okay. Well, I resent it, and that's because I wanted to talk about her book quite a bit when we get a chance. Because I sat down, not last night, the night before. I'm like, I really need to get into this. And my idea was I usually don't get to bed till around midnight. I'm like, it's at 11:30. I'll just read for a half hour. Because I've had to work and fix a bunch of stuff. I do a huge amount of moving files around to keep everything backed up. Because since I've started StreamYard, I back up every single video I do to a big terabyte box offline. That way, if YouTube cancels me or whatever, I can put it all back up later. But I opened that book and I go, wow. And I'm reading and I'm reading and I'm leaning and I don't. What the? 2:30 in the morning. Got like sleep eye going on. You look in the mirror. It looks like I've been throwing Sith lightning around.
Mhm.
But my accountability today is partially Carl Witzman's fault. And when somebody does something, because not last night, the night before, I had an incident involving the coyotes, and I wrote it up on Facebook. Because, creepiness does abound at points. And Carl goes, Nick, that belongs in a tale or something. And I'm like, son of... Because I've been writing a story, and I knew what needed to happen. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but you're like, word. I know the words, and either my hands aren't working or my brain's just refusing to just put the word down. I can see it. I can tell you the story. Verbally, I've told it. Onto paper. And I'm like, that dovetails in. SOB, that dovetails in. So I knock out the whole thing real easy, dovetail it in, and start editing a bit. I'm like, well, shoot. So because of that, I typed probably a couple thousand words, and I got a couple more just from because I typed it. I just had to put it on Facebook. So cut and paste is your friend, folks.
Yeah.
So actually,
Yeah.
It is.
because I'm like, it's 5 a.m. I'm awake because I don't feel good. As you can hear my voice cutting in and out. I might, my hands hurt anyway. Might as well take your ticket type. Alrighty. Let me go through a couple of these. Ooh, guests. Amazing. Hello, everyone. Hello. That's Justin K. Sweet, creator of Chrome Dog. Really neat guy. Great comic, too. You can download it for free, or at least the Ash can. Hit me up later if it's interesting. Carl, we've got that. We'll go check that. Whoa, and a comment dump. Sorry, I'm late. We had a horse emergency. It's all good now. I'm glad. More Jody McPhee.
Morning.
And we got no Donna. It's not there. I thought it might have been reshuffled. Well, I sent you another one just a minute ago, Kelly. Okay, we'll figure something. That's really weird.
And I tagged her in the group thing that we were.
Oh, okay.
doing.
There we go.
And
Give her some time.
Yeah.
And
I realized as I was saying that it was coming out as a not the green room thing, and I was trying to be behaved today.
I do appreciate it. I was hoping to have some people who would be very challenged by that. But
She's got it.
We got the first question from the chat, so we'll hit that. Question. What was your reaction when a person who enjoyed your work finally meets you to discuss it? I know from shows that I enjoy repeat customers when they come back and discuss the work. So that sounds like a Donna one, probably.
I don't think I've had any repeat customers just yet. It's always nice to hear that they enjoyed the book, but I haven't really ever had anybody who wanted to talk about it. The best reaction was when I was a freshman in high school. I'd just written my Man from Uncle book, and I had the nerve to give it to a friend to read. And she came back and was all bubbly and gushy, and she's like, this is just like the TV show. Are you going to write for TV, or are you going to be a book writer? And I'm like, I don't know, because I'd written it just for fun.
Hi, Kelly.
Back
Oh.
and
Hey, how's it going?
there's Kelly.
All righty.
Just like the TV
So I'm sorry. Donna, please finish your story. I think somebody's got TV on in the background.
I don't know, because I'd written it just for fun.
Hi, Kelly.
Oh,
Oh,
that's for me.
Hey, how's it going?
There's Kelly.
all right. So I'm sorry. And now it's going to cycle again because we heard it. Welcome to the wonderful world of Tech with Nick.
Oh, yeah.
Well, while we deal with that, because you might want to try going into your settings. There's a audio setting that says like echo check or something like that.
Yeah, my television's off.
No, what we're hearing is a delay of our stream.
Sure.
Well, while we deal with that,
Oh, you might want to mute your YouTube.
you might want to try going into your settings. There's a audio setting that says like echo. If you're watching YouTube, we're getting the delayed feed.
There you
And
go.
not that you guys don't want, an inception of this lovely group.
There we go.
There we go. So, Donna, please finish where you were, and then we'll get some updates from Kelly, because I have to talk to her.
Well, I really never thought about writing as a career at then, although I'd been writing for 2 or 3 years. Later, when I was in college, I did try sending some off to publisher, but you got to figure out what genre you're in. And back then, there were fewer genres than there are today. You have to figure out which publisher does that genre. You have to write a little cover letter and tell telling a little bit about your story and introducing yourself. You got to get a sassy, which is a self-addressed, self-stamped
Right.
envelope. And you have to put all that together, send it away, wait, have them come back, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to be, well, not at this time. And as everyone knows, I hope, because I like telling people this so that they won't expect anything out of me, I'm lazy. That was a lot of work. So I'm like, yeah, I just write my stories for myself. And then that Witzman dude comes into my life. And the little publishing company that was publishing his How Memory Works or Shape Up Your Memory book asked me for some poems. They did 2 little poem books. And then later Carl got into Lulu.com and says, we need to start getting your stories out. Now, the good news is, unlike most of those people, I've got a backlog. So I'm releasing one every 6 months. Bad news is, I've had a blockage now for about 6 to 8 months.
That's really rough. I think we're gonna have to talk about how people deal with creative blocks and the challenges in a minute. But before we do, Kelly,
Hi there.
you have kept me up more lately than people I'm related to, because that book, The Rembrandt Stratagem, danged if that isn't compelling reading. I just that.
You
It
can
starts
say it.
off. It's hard. It's hard to, because it starts off so. It starts off kind of slow, and thoughtful, and no small amount of tragedy in that intro. Because when you take somebody who's basically immortal, you get a very Doctor Who vibe when done right.
Exactly.
And that sets the tone after a truly intriguing. Right now she has her index of terms or glossary in the front. So I'm flipping through the glossary going, I wonder if that's a spoiler. Okay, that's the thing. To go through that. And then I hit this very thoughtful, and then she goes, okay, whoop, we're off to the races. I don't get to read often. I promote a lot of books. I get to skim them sometimes. And the best way to get me to read them is just give them to me. I hate to say it. It's just the simplest way to get my paws on it. But danged if I lost a whole lot of sleep. And I'm only to like chapter 2. Because I'm dyslexic and occasionally.
More to go.
I know. I'm 20% into this book, and I'm like. So, guys, I am comfortable saying buy the Rembrandt Stratagem. Just buy it. If you're an ebook person, buy it ebook. If you're a paper person, buy it paper. If you're a moneyed person, buy it both. That all being said, what's your accountability for the day, Kelly? What have you been up to since last we talked?
Well, let's see. Last night I spent, I think I spent about 5 hours writing. Working on the second book in the Bishop Kincaid universe. I'm up to chapter 7 now. Did a chapter last night after Tidbits and Scribbles. Yeah. And working on that. I've got an anthology coming out in November or Christmas of 2023. It's got Brian K. Morris involved. He's
is it what 6 Guns and Spurs or whatever that is?
No,
or is it different?
No. This is a. It doesn't have a name right now, but it's a prequel anthology. It's got Brian Morris. It's got 2 other talented writers and myself, and it's based on the elements: earth, air, fire, and water.
Okay.
4 characters that I copyrighted, and they'll be tackling those characters. building them from the ground up, and they all take place in the Bishop Kincaid universe.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And
That's ooh.
Yeah. May I ask, Kelly,
yes,
are you an organized writer or are you a pantser? Do you like make an outline and follow it? Do you write from beginning to end?
I always start when I write with an idea that I've got in my head. I get the last sentence of the last part of the last chapter of the story,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
I reverse engineer the whole thing. So the last word or the last sentence in my last chapter, excluding the epilogues, is where I start my book from.
Mm.
Where I start all my stories from, because usually that's where I end up getting the inspiration for the story to begin with. And as Dawn knows, she's read the book. So she knows what's going on, but that's generally what I do. I keep it all in my head. You can see that sometimes because I'll kind of go off the rails a little bit,
hmm
or I'll end up kind of cutting something because I've written too much. You'll have to take it all back out.
Mm-hmm.
The Bishop Kincaid novel, the first one was 327,000 plus words,
Oh my.
Jeez.
and I cut that down. I think it was maybe 75. Not for I don't remember, but it was originally a game. It was a role playing game, like the old I call them Panzer games.
hmm
Um,
Okay.
and it's 26 years old, so I had to cut out a lot of it. But then that leaves me room to do, a good 8 stories from it. And
Yeah, that's good.
There is
so
nothing wrong with some of those older game systems. I mean, now because I have so many guests, I'm kind of skipping some of the more in-depth conversation going on in the chat. It's not that I don't that I'm not interested, because I'm fascinated, but I want to make sure that the ladies have the
sure.
front and center. So I do apologize if that bothers anyone. This kind of show tends to be a little off my normal format. But so I don't forget, Grant, we need to chat about your history with gaming and the Satanic Panic, because there's some real relevancy with what's going on today. And as I was sitting there wincing and feeling like complete imposter syndrome, because I write very, very small books,
So do I.
little, hearing that word count was just like, oofta, impressive.
Minnesota now.
I write too much. I
And
put too
Michaela
much detail in.
reminded me that you only need 500 words for an episode. Just saying.
Just saying.
She's trying to sorry guys, turn me to the dark side, and I don't know. I may try that. I have a short story anthology that I am 7,000 words into, nearly 8, of horror supernatural stories that I've been working on for a while, and I actually, because of Carl, it got jump started. So I got to wrap up Lunacy, and now I'm working on Haints and Hellfire, which was inspired by. There's a thing called paranormal. What is it? The movie series that no one watches anymore, but Paranormal Activity. But it was like Next of Kin.
Mm-hmm.
And my problem is there's an old movie called Next of Kin with, I want to say, Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze.
And like his relative gets killed, and a whole bunch of like Appalachian hillbilly rednecks come to the hood and just like mop up, the gangbangers.
Mm-hmm.
So my brain's taking that concept and then like the Paranormal Activity where, oh, this happened. Yeah, but you didn't know about his auntie. And, so something really kind of, plus I get to use my favorite character of all time, which is the old guy who appears at every horror movie. If you pay attention, there's usually the old guy in the truck, and he'll come screeching by, especially the slashers. He's like, "Don't be going in them woods. Loup Garou, he come for you." And then he drives off and he doesn't die. So I've always said one of these days I'm going to write a story and start it with him talking, some version, because this trope pops up.
Mm-hmm.
But
all you need is one sentence.
Oh yeah, and that's what I've got is he's talking to a reporter about what was going on while he gets in his truck to get his dog to leave before everything goes gunny bag. But so since I have a full house now, let me double check that there isn't. We've got some. Joe Bachman will be delaying his Behind the Code for a while because he has some other things coming. And yes, we have it. We have technical difficulties. Alrighty, I'm just making sure there aren't questions in the comments because it's not like my chat runs amok if I give them just an inch, and they will, and I love them dearly.
We try.
Well, by the way, I've got shingles in the eye, so that's why I look like Terminator. Okay.
I understand. One, I wear my sunglasses at night. Two, until very recently, I always wore tinted glasses because I have extreme light sensitivity. So I don't judge people, but these have the blue blocker, and you can't get tint and the computer blue blocker at the same time.
Same time.
Okay, so
you were talking about. I hear her word count. I hear Michaela's, and I'm like, okay, my books are lucky if I get to 20,000 words.
Really?
My stories are short. You could probably read one of my books in a single setting.
There must be something wrong with me then.
Some stories can be told in 20,000 words. Some stories need to 300,000. It depends on what the story is. I mean, you can't judge based on word count. You can't judge what the story is.
Right. That's why most of my Hunter's Ridge books are I should have been more prepared.
it's okay.
Probably this big.
Oh yeah.
But then again, this Hunter's Ridge, Name of the Father, is this big because it was a bigger story.
Right. I mean, it happens, but there's also the balance of attention that people can hold, because there really is a call for short stories as people's attention spans fluctuate, and the longer stories that just you deep dive and wade into. Because so much of my stuff is very niche. It's like, if I wanted to make money writing, I'd write my niche nonfiction. Like, hold on. The sword books, these guys sell, especially these little guys, because they're cheap. I price it cheap, they're short, and they're black and white. I made a huge error, and I always warn people, if you could avoid putting color in your book for images, do it, because I put very little color, but they priced it like it was color page every page, because that's how Amazon works.
Is that for black and white pictures too? Will that be
Try
more
Lulu. Oh.
Well, black and white, you can do, and some of it works, but I was explaining Western martial arts, so I needed extra levers. But my little black and white art and tales is where I got started for those of you who are looking for little stories, because little tiny snippets can happen too. And that's because people will throw art prompts at me. I love the different Tobers. They have like Inktober and Gobtober and all these things. And, it's just a list of words. Draw what that means to you. But when I draw it, I'm like, well, there's a story here. And sometimes it's a sentence, and sometimes it's a whole page. And there is a cat getting into the shelf things behind you, Donna. Is that going to be problematic?
Calvin.
Yeah.
Simon Theodore. Anyway, that's Calvin, not Alvin. Anyway,
should have been an Alvin. And here comes Daddy.
But
It takes a group effort, team effort for everything in life.
There's
How
always the dreaded pool too.
the one? I'm sorry. I watch a lot of those horror movies.
Like the one that's going on behind Donna right now.
Yeah. No, like the Nuke's top 5 ghosts caught on camera, where they'll
Yeah.
run a clip and go, "Did you see it?" And they zoom in and there's like a specter. I love that. I love debunking them because I'll go like 3 episodes, debunk everything, and then I'll see one that scares the pants off of me and start all over.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's like I'm always watching the background of people's streams. But I was talking about how the random prompts inspire me. I think it's because I'm an old gamer, and I've been, you build the world with the players sort of as it happens. What? Because Kelly said the last sentence basically is what appears, and she sort of writes like a pantser mystery writer. So somebody's been killed. This is how they solved the case. This is who died. This is what they did mistake it. So one of the only ways to write a mystery and have it make sense. What triggers that spark for you guys? What has sat down and where you're like, I want to create something? And this includes you, Donnie, because I know you create stuff. You just don't talk about it much.
It could be just about anything. My last Hunter's Ridge story was inspired by Helen Reddy's Angie Baby.
Okay.
So yeah, I have a psychotic young girl, and well, she's not so young at the end of the story, but it's. I start out with her in first grade, where she just bites the H out of this other girl's arm, and continues through school to show this is her, and she keeps getting taken out of school and sent to a special hospital, but it just doesn't take until she finally kills someone.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Kelly, what jumpstarts you? Is it, do you just walk into it, or?
Sometimes. I mean, most usually it's based off of something that I've experienced or someone that I've known. Excuse me, one sec. I apologize.
I'll just mute you. Wave when you're ready to come back on, Kelly. Oh, okay. Now, I think
she's ready.
Well, I called him a mentor.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, sorry. I muted you while the phone was going because I didn't want to risk, accidentally hearing personal information or like doxing you in any way. I'm very protective of my guests.
Oh, no problem. But no, with my first book, there was a man that I knew years and years ago when I was a kid, and as I grew into the teenage years, I got to know more about him, and he taught me all about the golden age, comic books, spirituality without it being in a church.
Mm-hmm.
He was a soldier, ex-soldier, and he came back. During the times when soldiers would come back and they were spit on and disenfranchised, and so I took him as part inspiration for Bishop Kincaid. This was a guy that genuinely thought the world, was a good place, even though it spit on him.
Oh yeah.
And I took the character, some of the characters, the heroes, and of course the villain, and incorporated his own personal life. Took a little bit of the shadow, of course, and put it together. So sometimes it just comes to me. I may be out on the street and see a sign. I may see, walk past a bar, and that bar's got an entirely its own story and I may incorporate that into my world. So it just fluctuates for me.
Okay, so you just you walk. See, it's interesting because Michaela says because she wanted to be here and couldn't, so I'm trying to let her be here as much as possible. Mine start with the scene, usually in the middle of the stories. See, this is what my jam, and it drives my wife absolutely bonkers. Because what I do is I get an image, and a lot of it that sort of what got into the art and tales. I just started taking these things I'm writing down and putting them somewhere. But I'll write it up, and I have this much of a story, this chunk. Maybe it's in the beginning, maybe it's in the middle. There are one or two huge scenes that have been floating in my head for years. I just haven't found the right story to plunk them into. But I'll send it to my wife, and she'll read it because Google Docs is a wonderful system for collaboration. If you're not using it, get Chrome. It's right there. Go for it. But she'll read it, and then she slams into the end of it like a truck. And she'll come home, and I'll be doing something, and all of a sudden, like a wadded sock will hit me upside the head. What? You stopped! So I look at the phone, and she's like, "It stopped!" She's smashing the button to go down, and there's nowhere to go down. I'm like, "I'm sorry. I want to know what happened." So do I.
Bella!
I walk into the story. You think it's bad for you? I walk right into it. So,
Yeah.
I want to ask, because what we have are two very different style writers here, excluding myself, who right now, between my fever and stuff, the best I can be is not a cryptid today. And we have Donnie, and you're both in different, you're all in different styles and levels of the publishing world. Because what Dawn does is she's doing this background promotion, and we were talking quite a bit about working from a perspective of having limitations and trying to find how to do the most good with what you have. So I wanted to ask, you two, because you've said such things to me about your approach and what you're trying to do. If you don't mind sharing that, share it with the class a little bit.
I don't remember what I said.
One,
Too much.
might be able to help, and two, I think people need to appreciate, because it's like Law and Order, In the book creation system, there are two distinct forces: the authors who write the books, and the marketers who promote the books. These are their stories. Dun dun. But so many people, and I get this all the time, where either, I want to be a writer. What do you want to be a writer?
Nobody wants to be a writer.
I don't care. Handwrite it. Put it down. It doesn't have to be published. You don't have to. For me, author and writer really is decided if you've published and disseminated it with intent. Not necessarily made money, but if you've taken it and you've written something and you've put it out to people, that's when you go from being a writer to an author. That's just the way my mind works. But for you, you have to find ways with little to no budget. And we're big on spoon theory in these parts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fork theorist. If you really want to go into it, how many fork stabs can I take? How many spoons do I have?
Mm-hmm.
What's your technique, and what do you want? What do you want next out of what you're doing? So how can we help you help us?
Well, kind of go to the past, and this kind of goes to the question, one of the original questions I was asked today about, that Donna was asking answering when Kelly joined us. I actually met Michaela at a QuadCon, and I was just taken aback by her approach and how she marketed her books. So I bought the first 3 Elite Warriors books. She didn't have the 4th one out at the time. I went and got them, and I actually set them aside. I didn't read them right away because I wanted to be in the right mindset to read those. I didn't want to just be reading to read.
Right.
Oh dear. I read them. I was like, And by this time, she had put the fourth book out. I'm like, I need it. I need the fourth book. So you okay, Donna? So I ended up getting the fourth book. Well, I was so into the books that I just started, going, oh my gosh, you guys have to read these books. This writer is just amazing. And she's like, I need somebody like you with your enthusiasm and to kind of just help me get my name out there. So it just kind of happened that for me, I don't even know what I do inside. It's just I look at something, like when we did the On the Move, it's like, when I kind of look at situations going, if I'm sitting at a doctor's office, I'm reading a book and I see what the other person is reading. What are they reading? And I thought it'd be kind of neat to incorporate that because people will look at stuff like that. So that's why we kind of started the On the Move. And, it's like, okay, we have all these things going on for Michaela, Tidbits and Scribbles. We were doing On the Move. She's got, signings. She had the one at Cabbages and Kings. She's got the one come up at QuadCon and et cetera. And it was like, well, where can we put this all together? Well, then I got into the indie CD. So I've been, like, hey, Joe, can we do this? And it's like, I just look at things in a not normal perspective. I was in customer service and retail management for 20 years. So it's like I try to see what would a customer like, and you kind of get into a little bit of, I won't say, you kind of behind the scenes. You don't even realize you're promoting when you promote because you're just sharing what you like. Kelly, her book is not a genre, which we don't even know what genre Kelly's book really is because it's all over the board, and it's a compliment, Kelly, and that is a compliment. Okay. And it's not something I would normally. It's not something I would normally pick up, but it's one of those. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read it, and like you said, you get sucked in because you're going, oh my God, what's going on? What's going on? Because Bishop is not 100% perfect. But he tries, and you're like, I related to that, and I related to the character. So it's like, oh my gosh. So that's a lot of it. Is I just want people to sit there and go, you've got it. If I can relate to this, you should relate to this, and that's just for me going, hey, look, here, you need this.
So he's a likable character.
Yes.
He's very relatable. There's certain times I wanted to slap him through that book, but.
That's good.
I think that's part of being relatable because how many times have you done something and wish you could just step out of your own body and just like denozo yourself for what you just did? Sure, I'll do that. And then,
And then like Michaela's books, I necessarily don't relate to some of those people, but it's like, I want to be Megan. Megan and Gareth are my favorites. I love Megan and Gareth. And I'm like, I want to be Megan. And I think I see myself as Megan. Okay. And that's why, because if you read Warrior's Worth, see, always promote. If you read that, it's kind of like you guys are the warriors and I'm Megan. And I think that's why I relate to her.
That's a really good analogy.
I like that. And I think there really is because when people, we get into the things of characters, real people as character class is something I play with in my mind. And I really believe there are people who are very much main characters. As, they walk in the room and you're like, if it were an anime, they'd have pink hair. Like, you're a main character. You're a main character. You're the mid-boss. You're like... And we've all been NPC. Anybody who's worked a Joe job. Hi, my name is Joe. It's like, hello, you want paper and plastic? There's a sale. The dwarves of the South Kingdom are starving. What I mean? I think anybody I worked in a supermarket. I've been Chuck E. Cheese. I've been to every Joe job imaginable. And you end up feeling like an NPC. But I also feel like there are people who are naturally support class people. And we tend to worship the tip of the spear in any field, the actors who are the best, pinnacle, all the award winning, blah, blah, blah. And, very rarely do they think about like the grips who make sure nobody trips over the cables or something like that. and the safety officers who make sure, that is a prop gun and it's actually a prop and it's been unloaded and all that, that's sorry. My voice sounds a little rusty right now, but so one thing I like to do and I try to do is I try to build up the people who are main characters but should be leveled up. These two definitely have that energy. And then like the support people, because as one of them, most of us would prefer to move quietly in the shadows and do our job and never really be noticed. There's a reason like most renditions of Velma are so well received in certain circles, as opposed to most renditions of Daphne. It's like the support character is something I've always identified with, and I see that with you. But to do what you're doing, you either have to be very, very dynamic, and since most writers tend to be introverted, because you have to live in your head to create a world.
Mm-hmm.
It takes somebody who's either extroverted isn't necessarily the right word, because we're not, but motivated and maybe a little cunning. I think there's some delightful shade in promotion, and I don't mean that badly. It's just when you were talking about retail, I was a merchandiser for Home Depot, amongst other things. And once you've done that and you start thinking of planograms, you can't go to a booth and not like walk around a convention and some part of you is just like eye ticking, because it's like just there are these things, they're called price tags. Put them on your stuff, please. So it's neat to see what skill sets from non-related jobs ink their way into what we do. You know what I'm saying?
When Michaela and I, we met up one night, we were talking, and it's like, if she were to open a storefront, she'd literally have 8 UPCs in that store. You can't really run a store with 8 UPCs unless they're, each $100,000 or something. But it's like, you have to think, how do we get this out there if we, so it's like, I had to have the marketing brain too. And that's a lot of it is what can you do? And it's not necessarily being underhanded, but you plant seeds, you do this stuff. You're not, it's not like we're expecting things right out the gate, but it's like just that little bit. And, I'm going to quote.
No, there are two comments that apply to what's going on. First off, Michaela mentioning the imperfect hero, yes, because that Bishop Kincaid is going to be a name that is discussed. And I don't know if Kelly's quite prepared for just how big that. I have a feeling. I get this little almost itch on the side of my nose when I get around a property that feels like there's something here. And I could easily see, if you got the right people involved, the Bishop Kincaid graphic novel series would be amazing. Obviously, the RPG elements are so there, it just, it makes my dice hand itch. But I think that's going to be one we want to watch. Now, Blue Teddy says, promoting is hard. Dawn basically has a superpower, in my opinion, LOL.
Yes,
and I think we need to hear it. And, Jody is in the same way. And, he's saying, basically he sucks at it. He's more of a creative idea person. Slowly, you either need to get a Dawn or become your own Dawn. And yes, there is a new ad.
To be a Dawn.
And I will let the panel decide if they want me to run it, because Aunt Donna did send me an ad, but I don't want to interrupt the flow because it's this is a
I'll leave it up to Kelly and Dawn if they want to see it.
No, go ahead. I'm fine.
Premiere it.
Okay, so we will premiere this ad right now. And it's a good chance to watch the ad and then stand up from your chair and stretch, because we're supposed to do that every half hour. But I got distracted. So
3 women distracted you. We understand.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I know my faults. Okay. Ad time.
Hey there, everyone. This is Donna Carlene. Want some romance mixed in with a dead body or more? Then you enjoy my Hunter's Ridge series. Set in a small town in Alabama, it's the story of Northern Rider computer tech Carly Simone and the love of her life, Captain B.J. Martin of the Hunter's Ridge PD. But life in a small town is not all roses and beer, as Carly's expertise in true-life crime-telling makes her the Hunter's Ridge murder expert. And then there's nowhere to go dancing except the Dixie with his country music. But Rocker Carly can adjust, can't she?
Yeah, Witzman did a pretty good job.
Witzman did great, and I have to stop and say, not many people know this, but one of my favorite soundtracks of all time is "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" Like every once in a while, like this jug-blowing redneck version of me comes creeping out. You know, it's like that just feels right and just in the world, and I enjoy the heck out of it. And I do rank heavily the music in the ads that get run. So you guys will be seeing that fairly frequently. Let me make sure none of the comments are actually related to what you're doing. Guys, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this. And yeah, you need to get closer to the microphone.
Hey,
And,
if your mic was as good as my mic, it wouldn't have any problem.
Oh,
oh, Donna's throwing down, folks. We're getting a little violence up in here. We have to wait for the shipment of green Jello. However.
okay.
Anyway.
So when you get into the marketing thing, go, Donna. If I can sell X amount of books, I can get a new microphone. So you need to buy these books.
Yes.
Yeah, that works.
Everything about that. I love that because it's all about
my mic is a foot away from me, and I don't dare get any closer to it.
Carl's like, where's
Not the green room. Not the green room.
Not the green. I will be making an overlay for not the green room, but I do have to briefly mention two things. I talked about those stories and me sending them to my wife, and Richie says, brother, you give me crap for that, then you do it yourself. Kettle. Well, Pot. One, I try to help my friends be better than me. And two, how many books do I have published?
Wow, there's shade going all over in this area. I don't have to wear.
Don't worry, the fireball will keep you warm. Anyhow,
I wanted to read this if I could. It's from Obsidian Hearts, Linnea Fletcher.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I guess I look at, it was weird. I was reading this book and I came up with this line and I was like, wow. He jabbed his finger at the surface and without touching the water, ripples spread from the center in growing circles, tiny waves lapping at the grass stands of the small island shore. Every action has accompanying repercussions and no man can escape his fate. To me, that's just what we do, though. It's like everybody's just doing their thing. It's like we touch it's the ripple effect. And
yes. No. Oh, God, Dawn. It's you're one of those people who the second I heard you talk, I'm like, oh, my God, you're one of mine. You get it. I am all
you said that to me before, too, but word for word, you get it.
No, you get it. The ripples, and it's funny because it is word for word. I tell people, you got to think about the ripples you're putting out. Everybody is a stone cast in the water. Where is it coming back? What is it doing? Because I know the world looks scary sometimes, folks, and I can get mildly serious for just a moment because in recent history, we've seen some pretty heinous, grumpy stuff in the news. We've seen violence. We've seen lying, we've seen cruelty, and some of it has been done by politicians and people in power and the extremely wealthy, and it can be very tiring, which is why I watch the news incredibly limited. I watch enough to get what's going on, and then I go away. But I want to tell you, as somebody who's seen a whole lot of things and has a knack for statistics, I have an almost preternatural knack for statistics and things. Weird stuff happens. It always comes back. Guys, if you're putting out good and you're helping people and you're doing the right thing, in the long term, it will come out. And if you're shafting people and grifting people, it's going to come back too. And, different systems use different numbers. Some say threefold, sometimes 3x3. Some say 3x3x3. And I think maybe it's just how effective your ripples are, But what you do can and will shape not just your world, but the universe around you. And I think that's Donnie, here's the thing, darling. I didn't mean to scare you. But the thing is, you matter. And the vast majority of us in this chat, when we're by ourselves at about 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock hour of the wolf, sit at the point we've all done it, looking at a keyboard, looking at our work, or God help us, looking at our KDP, estimated earnings for the month, and go, do we matter? Does this matter? Am I doing any good? And how you define good is important, but whatever you do, you're going to put ripples. Everybody does. And you can closet yourself away and make as little noise in the world. But that's such a tragedy. Because what I want to see is people out creating. I want to see people being themselves, because the frequency will call to others. Obviously, look at this chat right now. So
I know you're being serious, and I apologize. Both my cats are like, we need in the bedroom. We haven't seen Mom for an hour. What's going on? So they're having a tantrum.
I have 2 cats. They are post-neutered. We were trying to stop the fighting, and we are in the can you guys be nice? Nope. Back in the box. Kind of thing. So I understand. Cats keep us humble. I love dogs. I really do. But I have cats because they pick me. And they keep you humble. They keep you guessing. They make the world a little more magical.
Mm-hmm. So I didn't mean to laugh during the serious part, but it was just
fine. No. You should. The world does not need to be a veil of tears.
No. Well,
I'm sorry. Hemingway was a great author and all, but there's this hang up, especially for white dudes. And I want to talk about this because I have 3 lovely women and the perspective that you have to be an alcoholic, miserable person to write. Now, I'm not dinging anybody who imbibes, say, alcohol or high-end cigars in any way or form. Because, my rules aren't everybody else's rules. But you're also not, always in that place.
No, I drink about 6 pots of coffee a day. That's probably not healthy.
I used to. We're in good company. But, and Michaela's like, ripples? I make waves. Buckle up, buttercups.
That's right.
And you know what? That's what we need sometimes.
I'm not a pebble. I'm a freaking stone.
But, I was just thinking with the kids. I call my cats my kids because they are. Yeah. The picture that Nick drew of them, I went on a whole rampage of, this is exactly what I'm seeing in this story just from that picture. And it was just one inspiration. You were talking, what inspires and stuff. It was just one little inspiration to another, and that's the ripple effect. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have to make it. The waves are awesome. I love your waves, Michaela. But if you're scared of the ripples, don't be scared, Blue Teddy, because some of those ripples are just they don't have to be huge. They're just, one thing leads to another.
And if you write something, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go on, please.
No, I was just going to mention, that when a person creates, if you create something and one person likes it, then really you've accomplished a great achievement.
Yes.
For yourself and them.
Yes.
Because it can inspire them as well as entertain them at the same time. And it also elevates the author to a little bit higher.
Yes.
this person liked it, but well, this romance novelist hated it, kind of thing. That's okay. You know,
Not their thing.
I've already found that out with my own book.
I don't what I love this lovely phrase, don't yuck my yum. It's one I've heard a lot. And no, I really like it because I try not to. There's this problem that people have this odd entitlement. I think it's because of social media more than anything else. But there have always been people like that, where it's like, what kind of pizza somebody eats affect?
Did you put pineapple on it?
No, and that's the thing. 'Cause I've had people literally swear me out online because I said, yeah, I went to Pizza Hut. I got my stuffed crust pineapple, Hawaiian pizza because I like it. Oh, that's disgusting. I'm not asking you to eat it. I'm not asking. And that's where I think there's a line where people try to force others into roles. Where, and I do not envy you as women in our society. It's better than it has been. But I simply don't envy you because I understand things like how scared a lot of you guys can be. And most men have no idea. I think it's because they either are so caught up in their, yeah, I can punch a bear. Like the fantasy powers them through. But so much stuff happens so fast. And I work with a lot of women who are survivors, we'll put it this way, of abuse, of rape, of suicide, whatever. And that's part of why I tend to spend my time building people up, and especially ladies when I can, because that's my it's my platform, and I'm going to do with it what I wish. Mm-hmm. But how do you? Because there are still some people who will try to claim, and I totally disagree with it, but they try to claim that writing is definitely, you're an author, not an authoress. And yes, I actually have heard that. It's rarer now, but how do you all deal with it? Donna did the big lean in, so I know she's ready to scrap.
I am different from most women. When I was being brought up, I had basically guys around me. My poor mother wanted a little girl in pink frilly stuff so badly, and then she got me. And I was quite the tomboy, of course. I followed although my brothers were 9 and 11 years older, I followed them religiously. And they both had their crowd of guys. So I had about 20 or so older brothers. Mm-hmm. And it's reflected back on me that, and I have been told many times, and I take it as a compliment, that I think and act like a man. And the first time somebody tries to put me down as a woman, I think that masculine tendency comes out because I mean, forget the sensitives, forget the eyes, the stuff that they usually tell us how to defend ourselves. I will punch you out with a direct left hook to the nose.
Main character energy, folks.
Yeah. Try to put me down as a woman, and I will take you out with my masculinity.
Okay.
And I think that's probably how I've moved forward in the things that I've done all these years.
Okay. Dawn, because I suspect you'll have a slightly different take. Same question,
What was the exact question?
Okay, I have to remember how I phrased it because I got so lost into thinking of Donna being the tar out.
I know. I was in
visualizing just the hook just come.
Yeah.
Don't put authors with the fight scene. Don't do that to me.
Donna will go to toe to stick up for you, but don't cross her because then you'll be the one going toe to toe with her.
Right.
That's how I come up with that.
The the beginnings of Duma, the origin story. Now,
Jody
what it
gets
was
me.
was when people play the gender card as a way to, because I'm rephrasing, but I think I'm saying the same thing I meant. And they play it against you. Have you had experience with that? Is that something that because there are a lot of groups where I'll forget that happens because I associate with so many women and so many, frankly, really chill guys that everybody's a dude. My West Coast comes out. We're all dude. It doesn't matter. But do you feel that at all, or is it?
Not really. I mean, I will
No,
admit, I will admit though, like Cabbages and Kings is awesome. It's the game store that we did Michaela signing at. And gaming is, even though there's a lot of women that play it, the game stores are majority of our men. And when we walked in there, everybody was like, ooh. But it's just not something that they're used to seeing. But it wasn't like they were outing us. It was just like, oh, what are they doing here?
Yeah.
And but as the night was going on, you joke around with them. I don't know. People are people.
Right.
And in general, I don't pay attention a lot of times if somebody's a man, a woman, if they're trans, if they're LGBT. I don't care.
Yeah.
So I will occasionally misspeak about something, not because I'm trying to be ist or ob. It's that the terms sometimes change so fast that I haven't caught up with the, oh, that's a term. And, occasionally I will misgender somebody, but I will occasionally misgender totally cis, obviously, people because, I have mild aphasia too. So it's interesting to see how it balances out. Now, Kelly, you've been nodding and you had a bit of a smirk. I'm going to pull the same thing. Your take on how you've had to deal, if you've had to deal, because I love hearing when people haven't, to be honest, with guys trying to hold you down for your gender. And a lot of times women, one thing I have seen is a lot of women will hold other women down
Mm-hmm.
far more than a lot of men will. At least those who are socialized to deal with women. And I hate to put it that way, but the game shop, that's a girl. It happens just about every time my wife and I go into any game shop. Though.
And half of them are married.
Yeah. But it's like, check it out. I have a kid. It's a sex trophy. Anyway, that was
hell, one of my kids.
If I may, for a moment, I have a cute story about GameStop. Everybody probably knows I play World of Warcraft.
Rock on.
Now, every time you get a new X-Pack, you can just download it. But back then, when a new X-Pack comes out, you had to go to GameStop to get it.
Yeah.
So I walk in, and the young man behind the counter, who might maybe have been 18 or 19, maybe, looks at Carl, because at that time, Carl was paying for this stuff. How can I help you, sir? And Carl looks at me, and I look at the kid and says, I need the new X-Pack on World of Warcraft. And he looks at me and goes, you play World of Warcraft?
His voice even cracked.
Yes, I do. But yeah, the way his little voice cracked was so cute.
Well, and I've seen that where my wife is shopping for something, and they won't serve her. We actually went to a game shop where the guy walked out and wouldn't serve her, and I went, "Hey, you just lost this much money."
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm the artist in the family. My wife, I love her. She's a librarian. She's one of the smartest people I've ever met. But fashion and color coordination is not something she does.
No.
So I've had to help her go, yes, that goes with that, or good God, no. You know, hun, I love you, but that's baby poo green. There's no. We are past that. Move on. You know, but there was a time she's going and I'm standing in the, I'm sitting in the husband chair. Everyone knows the husband chair. And this, sir, yes, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're disturbing the customers. Like, excuse me? Well, you're by the undergarments and it's making the customers nervous. I'm like, the only other customer besides my wife is this old lady who's looking for which sweater has more glitter on it, you know? Well, where would you want me to be? It's a little tiny store, and the husband chair's right next to where all the fancy underwear, because that's the husband who's maybe bored of me looking like, hey, you know? I like gift wrapping, but so I left, and my wife comes out and goes, he had the money. She's like, oh. And we went to another store because they gave her problems too. But it's weird, the gender biases.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had times where I was helping somebody else. They asked, a question about the color of something. I'm talking through it. I'm like, yeah, that would look good, but I really wouldn't wear that because it's going to make you look jaundiced. The yellow's not going to go with your skin tone. And my wife comes out, well, which works? And she goes, the other lady I was talking to goes, I had him first. You can wait. and my wife goes, he's my husband. We're married. I got kids. She goes, he can't be married. He's gay. And I'm like, it is not the first time people thought because I know more than 8 colors, I must be homosexual, hon. But no, that is my wife. She does have dibs. Go get sensible shoes. You're going to a dance. The other ones look nicer, but your feet will thank me. And I went off to tell my wife. But Kelly, while they were talking, because we got a little derailed, you had some nods. I'm watching the smirks. I'm big into micro expressions. That's why I love this as a genre. Wait. One more. Yes, we should adjust each other's crowns, not be competing to take the crown. Beautiful.
Yeah.
But Kelly, same question. How do you deal? Have you had to deal with men being, or women, asserting that what you're doing is out of gender roles or issues? Because you're writing a very traditional male, pulp action hero is not normally associated with females, except maybe like Lara Croft, which I love. And I love the female action hero trope, especially the smart ones. Mm-hmm. But, I'm a pulp and sci-fi guy. So, that's cool. Well, Diana Rigg, she ruined me for all women pretty much everywhere. Mrs. Emma Peel set my standards on, not necessarily aesthetics, but attitude and capacity. If there ever was a term for capability sexual, like how sapiosexual is attracted to intelligence, like people who can do things, I find very attractive. But that aside, how do you deal with the gender roles and such?
Well, I live in a small town in Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
And generally here they still think it's the 1940s.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not near Lexington, which is a lot more liberated. I'm in a little tiny itty bitty town. So yeah, there are people here who are just simply, they're not educated because they've been brought up a certain way. They have certain religious beliefs that are a little bit more literal in context, but they don't necessarily mean any harm.
Right.
But you get that very small percentage of people who follow politicians and then do assume that women are unintelligent, that they need to wear dresses, high heels only, excessive high heels, makeup on 24 hours a day, even when you're sleeping. You should, make the beds and take care of the house and rub the man's feet. And I'm like, hey, that might be good for somebody, but it's not going to happen with me.
Right.
No.
Oh yeah.
Women are always disenfranchised. It's been at the dawn of time. It will remain this way till the end of time. And women consistently have to go 10 times as far above, you know, a man, even though they don't want to, in
Right.
order to get a small amount of recognition. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Brian Morris, he said something that I'm never going to forget when I had told him about that 1-star review I got.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it's because you're a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Would
And
be
he said,
surprised, yeah.
you will get, people who will intentionally just give you that 1 star or do something to hurt you because of your gender. And it amazed me because this was from a woman,
Right.
who writes, by the way. She writes
Mm-hmm.
romance novels, and she has a very stereotypical way about how women should be in her stories. Now, in my Bishop Kincaid novel, Danny Darling, yes, she's feminine. She's very feminine. She can choose to be submissive when she wants to be, but she's also got, inner demons that are haunting her.
Right.
But she's strong.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
she literally crumbles around Bishop because she's, got this love for him. But
love
um,
makes you do the wacky, as Willow once said many, many moons ago on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
well,
But
go ahead, go ahead.
no, please.
It's just that yeah, I wrote an alpha male dominant, sort of dominant character,
Right.
but it's pulp. That's the purpose. It's I based
Yeah.
the story on these old dime store novels. So yeah, I guess there could be a little bit of sexism in it, but she holds her own.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
she's not this vulnerable character, and
And
I get
Hollywood,
irritated. Oh, I'm
the
sorry. Go
Medusa. What I'm trying to think. The Medusa character. I can't think the name right offhand.
ahead. Devonshire.
Yes, she's she's bad.
She's bad. Yeah.
Uh yeah. I said another word after that, but I mean, she's a tough woman. I wouldn't want to mess with her.
Yeah. I mean, well, I try to create characters yeah, I mean, they're in this world, but they stand their own. There's a reason why they have to stand their own. But in real life, I mean, I don't take crap. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if a
Yeah.
man confronts me about something, that man had better be really sure that he's going to finish what he starts, because I will never forget it and I will never let it go. I mean, and there have been a few people who have been under that, who have started something with me and then left, or they've just simply, you know, it's you're invisible because you are a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That is simply the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
And
just kind of a weird thing. I was thinking of looking at our names, and Dawn, Donna, they're kind of female gender oriented, and Kelly can go
Either
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 way,
way.
men. And it makes me wonder if people are like, oh, it's a guy, and then when they're reading through, going, oh, this is a girl. When they get to the end and look at
right?
the about the author, and if it,
Yeah,
I would love to see somebody who thinks that and reads that and see what their expression is at the
well,
end.
I
go ahead, Nick.
I have a question. Because one thing I like to do is I'll take an image and I'll flip it over to see the effect. How do you feel about male romance authors?
Well, you have to look at it from their perspective. Not all men are bad people.
Mm-hmm.
They're good-hearted. They're generally good people, but they don't understand a woman. They don't understand the mechanics of the woman. They see things, the visual interpretations, you know, enter the male brain, and that's where they get their romance from. You know, or
Mm-hmm.
they get their desires from. A woman's body is such a complicated machine. guys just, they try, but it's that uneducation that causes them to say dumb things.
Mhm.
Okay. If you've ever been in a bar back when we old people would go physically to meet people somewhere else,
Right.
you would get like, and I'm being cliche, but you get the guy who says, "Hey, baby, what's your sign?" And
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh my Lord, really?"
Nice shoes
It's
on.
not his fault.
My
You know,
sign is go away.
yeah, I mean, but he's not meaning any harm. But then you
Yeah.
get that one guy who thinks that romance is rape.
Yes.
You know, that it's okay to, not by a girl's choice. A woman can be submissive if she wants to.
Right.
She can be dominant if she wants to.
Yes.
I mean, I pull my hair back. When I'm writing, when I'm out, just on a casual day, I pull my hair back. I don't sit there and dress like super, I don't poof my hair, I don't wear the makeup, but when I go out on a date,
Mm-hmm.
then I dress up and then I'm feminine,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
and that's okay for most men to
Yeah.
see me in two different interpretations from day to day,
Hmm.
because I'm still the femininity that they're looking for, but I'm also independent enough that I can stand my own. And there are generally great authors who write a certain kind of a romance. It's a little biased, but yet it's not it's not harmful. It's just because the genders are different. The brain in a man and a woman is different. It's the wiring. I mean, I don't take any offense to men that write certain types of romances, or write a pulp novel in which the girl is really crying and she's dangling
Hmm.
on for dear life, above an airship on a ladder, and because that's what the myth is. That's the mythos.
She
But
breasted boobily down the stairs.
that's right.
Uh,
It,
Yeah.
Oh,
oh, come
Michaela,
on.
you need to get that in one of your books.
I'm,
it's
I'm,
just you can have female. If you look at movies today, if I
yeah.
may, when you look at movies like the MCU, and I see all this nonsense about Captain Marvel being feminist, she's toxic femininity. No, she was a feminist way back in the 1970s when, in the comics, she was an editor of a woman's magazine.
Right.
There's a clear panel that shows this character kissing a man outside her front door, implying what went on the night before. So there's
Right.
always this strangeness about that very small percentage of men, and it's very small,
Hmm.
who think that women are furniture.
Yes.
Yes.
That we are just there. Go
Yeah.
ahead. I apologize.
One
No.
author that really knows women is, excuse me, was Robert B. Parker, known mostly for his Spencer novels. In Spencer's love is a very strong woman, so strong that they never get married, but they're always together. Um, he's got another series that is just a female detective, private
Mm-hmm.
eye, however you want to put it. And she's got the cute name of Sunny, but she's a very strong woman. She gets things done. She's right in there with Spencer. She doesn't have his strength. She doesn't have his fighting capabilities, but she can hold her own.
Well, if I may quickly
Yes.
here, I know a woman who is a psychiatrist, very intelligent, okay,
Mm-hmm.
can hold her own, gets paid a lot of money, and yet she has this, I wouldn't say obsession, but she bimboizes herself.
Mm.
Yes.
Like true bimboization kind of thing,
Yeah.
that, yeah. And when she gets looked at, it's from a guy. In some women, it's dumb broad. sex machine. That's all she wants. But yet, she's got an IQ that would probably make us all ill. So gender is always a strange thing. It's a strange concept in books, in movies, and television. It's sometimes it can be offensive without meaning to be offensive.
Mhm.
Somebody can read a pulp novel and find complete offense in everything in it.
Oh yeah.
But because they don't understand what pulp is, they don't have any clue what Doc Savage is, or whatever it may be.
One problem I see, and not just in women's issues, when I look at it like sociologically across, media, it's also racial and gender biases and religious biases. When you are writing in period or you're studying historically, I find people keep trying to put modern mores, modern ways of thinking into a period where they simply largely were not.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you look at it, the greatest example is what the Victorians did to the Middle Ages.
Right.
In this rewriting and changing things to hit their cultural norms, and I think a mix of Puritanism, sorry, because Puritans, and the Victorian ideals have still infected a lot of our culture, both toxic for women, and for men, because there's still the huge stigmas that men shouldn't emote, men shouldn't, a man endures. And it's funny because I recently went, and I want to, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want to ask each of you guys a brief response, because I'm testing a theory. What do you want out of what you do? Okay, you're doing this. You're putting out books, you're promoting things, you're doing things. If you could snap your fingers and have your end goal, what would it be? And I'm just going to go around, and then I'm going to put a counterpoint, and I want to see where it is. Donna?
Oh my. I can't really say that I have an end goal.
Mhm.
I'm thinking I still look at my writing more as a hobby than a career.
Okay.
I just eventually would like to see everything I've written in book form,
Okay.
whether people buy it or not.
And that's completely fair and just. That's totally valid, and I love that. I'll be honest, I love it. Dawn.
I guess what I want people to see what I see, in the sense of, if I see this book and it's a great writer, whether it's male, female, whoever,
Right.
I want other people to see it. And for me, that's kind of how I want to portray that.
Okay.
Sorry, the cats are doing their thing again. And I
No, I'm
posted on Michaela's page, I think it was yesterday, living the dream is simply a form of living your passion. And
right.
I know that right now I'm kind of stagnant in what I can do, but one of the things I can do is build other people up.
Exactly.
That's something that doesn't take a ton of, I mean, it takes energy, but it doesn't take an excessive amount of energy to be, like I said, reading a book at a doctor's office of an author that I like.
I'm screaming, buddy.
So I guess to me, that's one of those things. It's like, I just want people to know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No,
and
that's
kind of to go with what you said about the women, Linda Cox's Hanukkah series, that's that is a trope that basically flips that switch post Civil War. So yeah, see, always promote, always plug, but you said that, and I went right to that.
No, that's wonderful, and it's a great answer. Kelly, same question. At the end of the day, at the end of your life, when you're looking back, kind of thing, what would be your goal? What would be, the I did it moment, at the very end?
If you're referring to my writing, it's I want someone to think. The human brain has critical thinking. It's a very important aspect of humanity.
Yes,
You can use it and it's very beneficial, but most of the time people don't use it.
this is
No,
true.
when you read a story, don't just read the story. Absorb the story, absorb the sentences in that story, and come to the conclusions, not necessarily what the author has done, what I've done, but come to the conclusions that's inside you that maybe you didn't realize when you went in, when you got up in the morning.
Right.
My book, you'll know when you get to the end of it what it's really saying, but
Yeah.
I don't like racisms. I don't like prejudices. I don't like inequalities. And I always take something from George Romero.
Right.
His zombies were never about monsters.
No,
Monsters
no,
were
no, not at
simply
all.
humans. You know,
Yeah.
Zombies were simply what they are.
Yeah.
And, people will look up, they get up in the morning, they think, oh, I'm so perfect. And then they look at the world and they don't mean to, but they can be disenfranchising to someone else. You know, um,
Right.
so I want people to take away their own view, their own conceptualization of what my story is saying. Hopefully in a positive way. You know,
Right.
and you know, I really don't have any aspirations. I mean, trust me, I've learned that publishing a book is not about money.
Right.
It's never about money, but it's the satisfaction of knowing that maybe I got to get into the mind of someone who didn't necessarily, Dawn, read something, because of the cover or the name of it, you know.
Or the genre. Yeah.
Yeah, different genres say different things.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and this is my problem with Kindle. You know, you're not absorbing. Sometimes people can hear what you're saying, but they really didn't hear it. You know,
Right.
books are there to as a gateway to learn more about their world and the people around them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, go ahead.
No, I'm only saying because we started to a great. It's a neat territory to go to, but there was a cyclic point because I asked all you gals. I've got in trouble for calling people guys, and I'm working on it. There are a lot of things I'm trying to work on to be better, but I was raised in a very, very old-fashioned home,
Mm.
but not a bad one. But anyway, when I ask men 201, when I've asked them, what do you want out of what you're doing, it's when I die, I want, there's some other thing, and then when I die, I want to know I've provided for my family. And it's funny because when people ask me, it's like, I want to make sure that, Western martial arts are for everyone. That, anyone who wants to learn can, that the knowledge is out there. I want to tell a good story, and I do believe that I have an obligation to the characters in my head, as ridiculous as it sounds, that I don't want to die without them published and out at some point. Because I would hate for a genocide of ideas when I pass, because I have so much in here, I can only get it out so in such a trickle. But at the end of it, I want titles that are doing the good that I can't do as I deal with the physical limitations, and that when I pass, provide an income for my son. And what I realized is every guy I've asked this question for years ends it with when I die. Not a single man that I have talked to, and I'm sure someone in the chat will pop up because that's the way the universe works, but has not included something like when I die, I want these people. There is a male expectation of early death, and there's a morbidity that they never talk about. And I wanted to ask women to see if that was there or if it's a more traditionally male thing. Because the only way to understand something is to go look, compare and contrast with other things and sort of draw the lines, if that makes any logical sense. So I find it fascinating. What I love is no one here said, I'm in it for the money. Now, I will say, all these lovely ladies and myself, if we do the job, okay, if they do the job, if they write the book, if we do whatever we do, I want to remind you the Tockert's Law. I do the job, I get paid. Because that's the next thing I want to port over and kind of slide into, if you don't mind talking. Now, I understand we've gone on for over an hour and 40. We're leaning towards 2. So if anybody starts to get tired or they want to call it, just simply let me know. But there's so much perspective in this panel, and it's such an opportunity. I'm hesitant to let go till I've gotten just as much wisdom and perspective out of you ladies as I can for the audience. But we also needed just that moment of levity because, this was pretty serious stuff. But, don't lose the line of thought, Nick.
We've got a couple of good questions in the chat.
I was just looking at that.
Let me find them because that's what I was actually trying to port over to. I do like Blue Teddy's. The rules are made up and the points don't matter. I've been called too masculine, too stereotypically feminine in my day before. Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting that the opposite gender is almost always used as an insult.
You right back.
Almost,
Okay.
yeah.
Like, to the point where I've had relatives, call me and my brothers by the feminized version of our names if we're not being butch enough, So it's like, it's Nicole and Maxine and Ricky with K's, It's like, why? What? And, I see that. But I also think, I want to believe that it's starting to fade out to an extent. And I wonder, do you guys see that in the younger generations especially? Because, Blue Teddy was talking about, I've noticed that these norms aren't being held normal. And is that something you guys have seen too, before we get into the wonderful questions the chat has?
Well, whenever I've been told that I think like a man, they have meant it as a compliment, and I've taken it as such. As for a change in the next generation, they're becoming a little less gender specific, except for some who have gone so totally the opposite. I've seen younger ones who are, I'm like, this is the 2000s, honey, not the 1900s.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a fair point. Does anyone else want to chime in before we hit the comments?
Well, there is a change in the shift as far as the gender dynamic goes. Like I said, one is intelligent and looks like a bimbo. Another one prefers the old, when I say Victorian-ish type living and lifestyle, and worships their husband, and that's great. I mean, I think that's fine. Everybody can be gender fluid in their ideals as much as they want to. It's just that sometimes it can get way too toxic, and that creates a situation that can hurt someone.
And I think what that's a great point, because what I see happen a lot of times is that consent works both ways. And as consent is something I talk about because I have had experienced assorted attempts of sexual assault on my person, both from men and women. So it puts me in a unique perspective almost. You know what I'm saying? Because when you talk about homophobia, there are levels of some men are scared of being treated like they would treat a woman. In more ways, and some there needs to be a second class to the term, because some are scared not of that, but of if you get labeled as gay, you are now massively vulnerable to social backlash and physical, at certain points, physical stuff, threats and such. So that it's a complex thing. So I think that's why the hypermasculinity often will rise again to the surface as a means of control. And until recently, I think men were fed a lie. I really do. And that being that there's a social contract. You work so hard. You do the overtime. You do this. You come home. You get It's like almost Leave It to Beaver still infects. And I'm a stay-at-home dad, so I catch flack all the time. Especially when my son was little, how you're out babysitting and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just interesting to see which way these roles go and how vicious people can be. It's when like you have to, and I don't know if you see this. Do you see where people are starting to go, it's not enough that you tolerate things, but you have to condone it. You have to be like, in some cases,
I'm kind of brought back to what you're saying now, to when you were shopping with your wife and you can't have him, you're gay. We all kind of laughed about it.
Yeah.
It's not that we're laughing about, it's because you were mistaken for something that you're not. Whether it's, whatever you're doing, whenever you're mistaken for something, people will laugh at it. It's something that's completely on your side of the spectrum.
Right.
But
whether it's sexuality or your job or what you do or anything, it's not that we're laughing about that per se.
Right. And it's interesting to see how many people, as they adjust, overcompensate.
Yeah.
And it's like watching the political pendulum sort of swing between hyper liberalism and hyper conservatism. And when you're I'm a strict moderate politically. I'm very moderate personally. You know what I'm saying? And as long as it doesn't directly affect me, my rules are: is it consensual? Is it hurting anybody? If it's consensual and it's not hurting anybody, and it's not directly affecting me, it's none of my dang business. But it seems like people can't get to that last step on both sides of that, and I find it fascinating.
Well,
so I was wondering,
go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
I'm wondering. I've asked about women who hold you down and men who hold you down. Do you ever feel like you're getting something I've seen called, toxic positivity, where people are constantly like hyping beyond, as like I think Dawn will understand fairly well, because when you have physical limitations, you go, I can only do this much. This is what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have people who are like, no, that's just you holding back, and it's like they seem to mean well, but you realize they're just pushing, usually towards their own benefit.
Right. I had somebody, I kind of went on a rant one day about my chronic pain, because it's more than just RA. I have a few things. That's just kind of one of the main ones. And
Right.
She went off to say, I have RA and I work. It's just it's a mindset. And I kind of watched a couple of my friends kind of get on her on that.
Well,
When
yeah.
it's not a mindset. It is a mindset to an extent, but you can't just ignore it.
It's a bias sort of
Right.
way of thinking. Because, I mean, I'm considered disabled. I mean, the government disabled me because I've got Crohn's disease and neuropathy, and I've got a bunch of other things. So if I'm lucky, I might be able to type, a couple paragraphs or maybe get a couple pages a day, and then the rest of the day I'm hurting or I can't move. If you're in line, let's say you get food stamps,
Mhm.
there are people who literally will just say it right there in the checkout lane, put you down thinking that
Oh, yeah.
you're giving the government. So these things always happen. Some people have better opportunities than others do. Some people have never been sick before. They don't know what it's like to have any sort of pain. This is the world we live in. It's
And
never going to
it,
change. There's that
it's hard to understand what you've never experienced. My father used to he had a stomach made of steel. That man could eat anything and it not go back on him. And he couldn't understand when my mom or I would come up with a stomach ache. Then he had gallbladder issues. And he became very understanding. But as to toxic people, I kind of lived my life for a long time. I'm adopted. My father's parents did not accept that. They did not accept that I was part of the family because of that. So I grew up with that until they finally died. So I've learned to okay, that's how you feel. I don't have to talk to you. And then my brother's second wife was just what we call her the witch.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even a title I came up with. Carl came up with that one. Always putting me down. I don't have to talk with you. You live across the state.
But these are people
So,
with their own problems.
yeah. And, these are people who were related to me. So it's really easy if someone not related to me starts being toxic. And I'm like, talk to the hand because the ears ain't listening.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. I'll
No,
hold that thought.
I want to make sure, Dawn, do you have anything you want to wait in? Or are you comfortable? Because what we have are two very strong personalities and a fairly sedate personality. You're comfortable in marketing because that's not you. That's redirecting other people's energy. But that means I also have to be very cautious as a moderator to make sure that you get your get to say stuff when
Including
something
you.
comes through.
Yes.
I've interrupted enough. I feel like I've done my share of
Not at
interrupting.
all. One thing I tell people about any show I host, I grew up in a household. My dad was in the and he was a radioman and he got blown up and all sorts of other stuff. So one ear could hear one range because he always had the earpiece like this, and one ear could hear the other range. And he's in his 70s. I think last year he got hearing aids for the first time, to give you a scale of what we're dealing with. And so there's always a level of shouting and talking over. And I found out that I actually have hearing loss in part of the range my wife speaks in, which is why I have to be looking at her. Yeah, it was hilarious to be married about 15 years later. And she'd say, we'd be out with my parents and, big yelling. And she'd like, you always talk over me. I'm going, when? I genuinely don't remember doing it. The look on her face when the doctor's like, yes, he can't hear that. And that's about your vocal range. So when I have to sit across from her so that I can see what she's saying sometimes. But like I said, I just want to make sure everybody's getting a voice and a call.
I do want to answer Michaela's question, though, that she asked about what first made us fall in love with books.
That's where I was going to go next. I just wanted to let Kelly say what she was about to say.
I'm sorry.
And then move over to that. No, we are on the exact same page. So Kelly, you want to say one more thing, or
no? I was just gonna. I had a random thought about going back to the masculinity sort of thing.
Yes.
There is a place for the now almost extinct alpha male mentality. There's a certain place for it if it's a respectful sort of thing. Because if you look back when Titanic sank,
yes,
if you look at the men during those times, yes, some of it was toxic. But those were men who, would stay and die to let a woman and a child live. And yeah, that's a little bit condescending. But you don't get that sometimes today.
No, and I will say,
sometimes today it's the guy pushing the girl, off the rail to get to the lifeboat,
Yeah. I believe that there is the traditional gentleman.
Yeah.
Is something that, believe it or not, we do exist. There are a few positive titles I will let myself hold, but I do try to be a gentleman, and I try to. It's interesting because I kind of am the cusp between two very different worlds, and it's like the last of the you hold the door, you open a car door for a lady, unless there's a special situation, you hold doors for people, something goes bump in the middle of the night, I'm the one who goes out and checks things like that. I will say, the definition of an alpha is very interesting, because if we're going to use an alpha man to me is somebody who, he's in charge, but he takes care of everyone. So it doesn't always look the way people would think an alpha man would look. We have the Hollywood Pierce Brosnan, Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton to me looks very much, when I think of him, even though he was playing a bad guy, I think of him in The Rocketeer. Mm-hmm. And he looked very much like an alpha man. Most of anybody who's played Sean Connery usually has that kind of energy, but that's really not an alpha man. That's something else. Because an alpha man's the one who's got, in my pocket I got some Cheez-Its for the kids, because I'm taking care of the family. I'm taking care of the family, taking care of your people as somebody, when they fall into that role, I think has lost what it actually looks like. And I will say, we're not extinct. We're just a lot quieter, and most of us are at work. You know what I mean? It's like, well, where are they? Where have all the cowboys gone? You go out to Oklahoma and you look, and there's still men out riding fence and, cutting herds. Men still exist, but I think masculinity as a whole has become partially reviled in our society, when the difference between toxic masculinity and positive masculinity, needs to be split with I would say the same thing to femininity, because ironically, traditionally feminine traits such as caring and kindness, we assign these. They shouldn't be. These should be gender neutral traits, but at least in American culture, it's very much, it leans towards the feminine. And it's, to me, I feel so sorry, because I know many people who, frankly, a lot of the ladies in my life are rather butch. I mean, when I met my wife, she was sword fighting, and she wore about 50 pounds of chainmail. And I have to admit, I am attracted to a woman who can kick my butt. I am totally fine with that. But she also, every once in a while, she'd go, I want to put on my pretty dress and go do pretty things, And she would get flack from some people, because it's like, no, you don't get to have both halves. You have to be one or the other. And when I talk to the young people, because I work with a lot of kids. I used to work in schools, and I still work library programs with small children. Uh, Even the young teenagers and stuff, they're starting to become something, and I don't know how much of it is good or not. I want to see, and again, do you see certain things have been falling off in especially male identity, but from a woman's perspective, things like sacrifice and steadfastness and trying to be moral, and and I'm not conflating moral with religious. Many people do, but because frankly, some of the pagans I know are some of the most moral people I've ever met, and some of the atheists are absolutely. But how do you feel on the trends of modern men, and what, as writers and as simply eloquent women in society, would you like from men? If you could do an open letter to dear men, pull your head out of your ass and, but all tongue in cheek there, what would you like? And we'll start with Kelly, because I've been starting with Donna and I want to work my way around.
I don't know. If I had to tell a guy who's a true alpha male, I would just sort of let him know that girls are more than just things. That if we can have a conversation to better you, instead of you just taking a one-sided view. There's nothing wrong with men at all. I love guys. Okay, I make no bones about it. Okay, but there are times that a guy will simply not listen. Have to just listen, to a girl. And a girl can be pushy sometimes. Now, if a guy's in a bad mood, and you say, "Oh, hey, can I help you? Can I do anything for you?" And the guy says no, leave him alone. Respect what he's trying to say. He can figure out what's going on in his own mind by himself. Go away, because you're just going to alienate him more. It's listening to each other. I really don't have problems with men that open doors for me. If they want to do it, fine. But I can still open the door by myself.
Right.
The only thing that really bothers me is the listening part, the communication.
And I think understanding that men and women speak vaguely parallel language, and that's one thing I think we haven't gotten on that front. Very, very few people get that men speak as, and I think Donna's laughing because Donna speaks Guy pretty fluently most of the time. In fact, she almost always speaks in Guy. It's part of the reason why she's very comfortable. Guy speech is very different in delivery and reception than the way women traditionally and often speak. And two people say the same thing and have no clue the other. So you almost have to find the Rosetta Stone. And usually with your partner, you can figure it out because you have time. And then from there, you can extrapolate. That's why old married guys can go, "That's not what she said." But she said that. Well, she said it was fine. Oh, young man.
Yeah.
But she said it was fine. Do whatever I want. And,
go ahead.
There are young men who do not understand that if a woman says, "Fine, do whatever you want," it is not fine. You can't do whatever you want. They are pissed, but because often men are hyper literal. And no, I didn't just say literal. I said hyper literal. The influx of stuff doesn't always hit. So that's
You know,
that's
if I could just add
yeah,
quickly, the idea of men and women and their language, it is alien, you know.
yeah,
But see, the thing is that one thing that has made me so angry is that a person a while back asked how another person was doing. You know, oh, they're hurting or they're hurt, but didn't bother to ask me, are you okay? Or are you hurt?
yes.
Even though I was crying on the other end of the laptop. And that's
Mhm.
just goes to the alien language between men and women. Doesn't make that person bad at all. It's just that person, that guy didn't
Uh,
realize
yeah,
what he
that's the thing. It's many times it's the equivalent of being mad at somebody who's literally deaf for not hearing you,
yeah.
because some of the or it's like color blindness.
Mhm.
It's like audible color blindness, where there's an elaborate set of tones, but the some many times the male mind will not. They think it's interesting. I say they when I'm like this, but a very tangible block. I do this. I do this. I do this. Not the connections, and that's one thing I've noticed, that most men think about concepts as blocks,
Mm.
and most women think about the lines that connect the blocks.
Mhm.
Well, this guy didn't mean anything,
Oh
you
no,
know.
no, no! And you have to understand. Not only are especially men of an age, and I'm not trying to age set up anybody, but not only are they not taught expressing care, expressing compassion, and being able to recognize things like suffering in others is a skill set that either you have to acquire or it has to be taught, especially and that skill set, because it's perceived as being weaker, is deliberately suppressed in men. We are taught not to show weakness. We are taught not to uh, excessively emote, except anger. Men are
Mhm.
allowed to be angry, but in modern society, I mean, like think how many guys you know who would never cry over anything, and how tremendously unhealthy that is. But it's interesting because it's also expected by a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that's it's fascinating seeing these counterpoints, because this isn't going to solve anything, but I think it's going to give a lot of conversation. My hope is at the end of this, people are going to think. Now, we've gone down the deep well quite a bit. We've hit some serious, hard sociological discussion. Oh, is that my jam? But as I promised Dawn, we need to lighten up a little bit here. Good Lord, this is starting to feel like a college course, which, while I enjoy it, Michaela asked a question. How did you first fall in love with books? And I'm going to start with Dawn because I want to rotate the
Um,
things.
I actually started reading when I was about 3 or 4. My sister was older than me. She'd come home and play school.
Mm-hmm.
We would play school, and she'd bring home her stuff, and I was actually learning it. So I started
Right,
reading at a young age, and I think it just kind of was I enjoyed it. I was in, advanced reading. I was going to the next grade for reading from kindergarten through second grade, and then it was just too much for a little kid to take on with all their homework. And
right.
but I've always loved to read, and so I was into series. I think it was just something I enjoyed doing from what I can remember. I've always been able to. I've never remembered not looking at a letter and knowing that's a letter A.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Donna, now that you're drinking. Uh,
My mother was an avid reader until she became a farmer's wife. But she always took time to read the little baby books and such to me. And by the age of 3, she was trying to skip parts because she she had things to do. And I would correct her. I said, no, you missed this, you missed that. And she finally said, well, here, read it yourself then. So I was reading by the time I was 3 or 4. I was also ill a lot as a child, 13 times in the hospital from strep throat alone. And what to do? I had to read my textbooks, which is why I like reading nonfiction these days. And then she would bring me in comic books and other books for me to occupy my time. I was that kid at this when the Scholastic Book Club came around. 2 books to this, 1 book to you, and here you've got the rest of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't have a lot, but my mother always made sure that I had money to buy all the books I wanted from the Scholastic Book Club. I mean, it's no wonder I've got a library of over 5,000 now.
Do you remember the paper flyers they used to send home? I can't remember. It wasn't the book fair.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was my favorite day.
That was Scholastic Book Club, yeah. I'd go through and mark the ones I want, and I'd go, can I have these, Moms? And she's like, okay.
That was always my favorite, the books.
Yeah.
Okay. Kelly?
Oh gosh, kind of a weird story, I guess. My cousin came to visit when I was about 11 years old, 11, 12 years old. And at that time, we had like PBS, and that was it. So we spent our days literally watching Doctor Who and the old Republic movie serials, the Commando Cody and the Junior G-Man and all of that. So we liked Commando Cody so much that we scooped up newspapers that my mom was saving for pads for the dogs, and we cut out all the articles and we fixed them on poster boards, then basically stole Daddy's fedoras and sat out on the front porch, and we reenacted being news reporters out on stories, stalking mysterious monsters and stuff. And then that led me to my older brother, who thought it was hilarious. He was going into the Marine Corps, and he would never let anyone in the room, of course, his bedroom. And he had H.G. Wells novels and stuff from Robert Heinlein and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
H.P. Lovecraft.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where initially, from all that, that's where I started, my love of books. I just could not believe that a man, could create War of the Worlds, where that Cthulhu and that mythos ever existed. I still have nightmares. I suffer from nightmares anyway.
I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at you. I am literally laughing. I can speak the English language. I am literally laughing with you because I love the mythos universe. But I've had some truly, because of the, when you expose yourself to adventure, you get adventurous thoughts. You expose yourself to romance, you get romantic comedy thoughts. You expose yourself to cosmic horror, and it sits like a seed in the back of your mind. And I actually, in something, I released it by itself years ago called The Whisperer. And it's going to be in my anthology that I'm looking to put out through the Thinning Veil, possibly by the end of the month. Hashtag always promote. So you'll be getting a 99-cent extra book basically just shoved in there because it was like I needed to publish something or I'd go insane, kind of. But very, very, very Lovecraftian. So it's interesting that what brought you the love of books also came with the price of nightmares. And I find that oddly delightful.
Well, I always had nightmares. I mean, a little bit before that. Nobody's ever been able to figure out why I have these nightmares, but they're nightmares that really are just, I can't even describe what visually they are. I have to take medicine to suppress dreams, nightmares. That helps with that. But it incorporates into my writing in the worlds that I create. So I kind of view that as a half and half. It's a good and a bad. But
No, yeah. No, I find that fascinating. I have a mirrored response to that because I suffer from anxiety, and I also have a bit of PTSD from some things, and frankly, every home I lived in, but this one, was, we'll say, actively spooky. And because this one is not, the problem was when you live in that, you start to worry when it's too quiet. If it goes too quiet too long, they're up to something.
Calm before the storm.
It got so bad I couldn't sleep, and what I ended up doing was finding Mr. Creeps does podcast horror, creepypasta is the word I'm looking for. Horror stories, and he narrates them. And when I would get scared about, this intangible anxiety, which would hit sometimes, fairly frequently. I'm a bit better about it now because of some of the medication, side effect stuff, not meant for that, but hey, cool, it helps. I would turn on that or watch a horror movie. Because then I was already anxious and scared, so I'd watch something and it would let me digest. Okay, I must be scared about this, And now the movie's over, and a lot of times I found that would actually kind of package that up because it gave the fear something to do. I don't know if that makes sense, and I don't know if that would help anybody here. But as somebody who suffers from anxiety about a lot of things, sometimes it's like, okay, I need to be scared by something, like some of the spooky stories I've read. Because when I started reading, I had a few kid books and such, but my dad had, the old sci-fis around and, old classics. So the first, I read kid books, and then I jumped straight to, what was your first chapter book? The Hound of the Baskervilles? Mm-hmm. What? Then Treasure Island, then Orn by Piers Anthony, and Skeleton Crew by Stephen King. And it's just I went whoop. And my parents used to have a subscription to this magazine called Omni. And I don't know if anybody's old enough or weird enough. Omni was just this mix of sci-fi and insanity, and I still remember one of it was, they were trying to figure out by logic, the best use of illogical logic. And they said, well, what you do is we take a cat, because a cat always lands on its feet, and bread always lands butter side down. And since these are always, you strap a buttered piece of bread to a cat, and then once it falls off of anything, it begins to spin, because as long as it holds, both sides want to go down. So you have this hovering immovable object, and you could build monorails supported by cats with buttered toast.
Tell us how that works out for you.
Yeah, between that, Doctor Who, Blake Seven, and Red Dwarf, and then, the Avengers. The way, it's funny, sci-fi both hard set my intolerance for useless people, especially when they show, a woman can't do that. I grew up with Buck Rogers, and I got so mad because first season Buck Rogers in the 80s, Wilma Deering was a bad mofo.
Awesome.
Anybody who was a fan during that period can see her in her little helmet and her little white jumpsuit strutting across, about to cause all kinds of trouble. She was in command of the planetary defense. She was a bad lady. She got stuff done. She shot Buck when he needed it. You know what I mean? And then you hit season 2, and suddenly she's in a sailor suit on a ship, and she's serving tea to the admiral. I'm like, what the? And, this is the 86, 87. I'm a little kid going, what happened? What? I couldn't even articulate. And we always watch stuff with subtitles on whenever possible. So it's like you're constantly reading. I watch stuff with subtitles all the time. But, I read sci-fis and I read fantasy novels. Oh, my God. At, like, peak teenage nightmaredom, I found R.A. Salvatore. And the Drizzt Do'Urden books came out. And that's when I fell in love with the sword. I absolutely decided I'm going to learn to sword fight. And I love when you find between that and like role-playing games, it's like, this is a skill. I can't do magic, but I could pick a lock. I could learn to do that. So
Rich does magic.
Isn't
it Rich that does magic?
What?
Isn't Rich? Isn't he the one that does magic?
Oh yeah, Rich does prestidigitation. Yes, he used to work in a magic shop.
Exactly.
Carl used to be an amateur magician.
I could. My problem with that was I'd be watching like even David Copperfield, and I'd go, "Oh, that's how they did it." Like all the time, I'd watch it and I'd go, "That don't look at the pretty girl." That so
hard as it is to do, not do.
They were for me. Magic shows were always almost a Sherlockian training system. You know what I'm saying? What's wrong with this picture? But it's just interesting how the books that shape and change us. Gate of Darkness, Circle of Light, I think is a twofer, and I can never remember the other one. It's by, I want to say Tanya Huff. Brilliant fantasy, but it affected me. College was all about Mercedes Lackey. Because she had such a backlog, and I got more heavily into it. Because I had a little library, like the little branch library. So, the spinner rack of fantasy books was limited. And, in elementary school, they had the shelf this long that had Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, UFOs. And I read, at one point I had the whole shelf memorized. I knew every book inside and out about the spooky stuff like that. But that's where I lived book-wise. Now, Joe has a question, and I'm going to attempt to read it because Joe likes to ask complex questions. And he says, question, when looking at society norms, do you feel that it is not being done professionally, that some jobs or means of support in male gender term are not shunned like it should? Examples, gigolo.
I always find it amusing that if you have a young woman being kept by a rich man, that's okay. But if it's a young man being kept by a rich woman, he's a gigolo.
Yes. No. That is a perfect example of the kind of BS modern standards. Now, I have some honestly spicy opinions on what people would consider sex work. In that, while I myself would not partake those services, that's been going on literally since the dawn of time. It will always go
the
on.
oldest profession.
Yes. Why instead of it being illegal? Why not instead of being illegal, legalize it, unionize it, and have medical treatment for people who are in that, screening and support. Mm-hmm. Because there are some things that will always happen, and while the cheating aspect is something that shouldn't be done. Obviously, if you're in a monogamous, said it right. Sorry, my speech impediment likes to flip monogamous and monotonous. And while I have no problem with a monogamous relationship, obviously I've been married 20 years, people can get offended real fast, so I just have to double check.
Well,
But
my thing is, it's like gambling. We have a casino
yeah,
in Danville. It's going to open soon. People's objections were that the poor people are going to be spending their money there, and they won't have any money. And just like whoever's going to cheat on their spouse and go to a brothel, these people are going to gamble anyway, we might as well tax it.
gambling I find hilarious because I very rarely gamble, with the exception of buying a lotto ticket, and I don't actually expect to win. I have a week, so I try to buy it with the longest amount of time. For the price of that lotto ticket, I get to think about what would I do if I had that money. And it's not for me a expectation to win. It's a mental almost vacation. It's this, it justifies, well, I could do this and this and this and, crazy applications of lazy rivers and, things like that. But I don't understand why things like that aren't handled better, because we try to put morality on it and make it go away, and gambling isn't going to go away. I know people who will bet on literally anything. I've known the crowd that what that's it. They're gonna put mustard on that hot dog. Mustard, nothing. They're gonna get ketchup. They're from Ohio, not Chicago. They're gonna put mustard on it.
$10 says.
And
so there's always going to be prostitution.
Yeah, there'll always be prostitution. And I think it's interesting that the treatment of prostitutes, both male and female, and of whatever gender, not gender, orientation. Because it's like there's a whole complex, like if a woman is a prostitute, she, it's a tragic story usually, and you hope to pull them out kind of thing. But if a guy's a male prostitute, there's this whole, we don't know what to do with it because he's proving that he has sexual virility, and that's societal, great. As long as it's only heterosexual, but if he's homosexual and a prostitute, oh my God, all this other stuff is going on.
Yeah, where you're at.
Yeah, and
you're in the United States.
Absolutely.
Look at Japan.
Yeah.
In Japan, it's completely, some of it's the same. Some of it's masochistic, with the criminal organizations. But then you get into a geisha.
Oh, yeah.
Trained and revered and, adored by married women, because they know that if their husband goes to the geisha, there's not going to be any chance of disease, that it'll be done with exquisite taste, and respect, and that when the married woman doesn't have time, to please her husband,
inclination,
then he can go there and it's okay. So but then he goes to a prostitute on the street, the married woman then looks at it as being true defiled sort of behavior. So in Japan it's different, but in America a prostitute is trash, like in Japan. However, if you're an escort in America, you are elevated even though you're still a prostitute. You're just wearing a better status of clothing with better hair.
And then you have the whole, the internet has made some interesting things happen, like the OnlyFans crowds. There was a brief time where OnlyFans was actually for anybody who wanted to, have it was very Patreon-like, and then it became basically, individualized pay porn. But the whole e-girl culture, and then it's interesting. Virtue versus promiscuity is a concept that is fascinating because men are leveraged constantly to go out and have sex from a terrifyingly early age. And, that obviously happens. Women are held in this bizarre, Madonna in the streets and a succubus in the sheets kind of dual role thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all, I find it all very, very bizarre because we live in a society where they don't talk about sex till after, a lot of people have lost their virginity. And how they talk about sex is equally bizarre because, men don't know how women's functions work. They stopped telling us. It got to the point where they get split, and it's like, here's videos of STDs.
Yeah.
This will your junk will fall off if you have sex. You know what I mean?
But just thinking of all the little videos we saw in 6th grade.
Oh yeah, but the reason I find that interesting was there have been periods of time where and I've lost the word. I don't think it's cortisone, but it was women who functioned much like geishas, where the man, the boy who's reached the age of majority would be, you're going to go visit this woman.
Yeah.
And she would teach him about how all that worked. Sometimes it was part of the role of a nanny. Sometimes it, as they transitioned out, or often it was, you're going to go to this woman. She will teach you how everything works, how women work. And ironically, many times that woman would be the same woman that girls would be sent to be explained how their cycles work and all that. And, and we have lost, of all the experts we've lost in this world, which I find hilarious, we've lost her. The woman who, and the last manifestation of that as a trope I can think of is, I want to say her name was Sue Johnson, and she was on PBS, and she was an older lady. I mean, she was, I think, in her 60s or 70s when I saw it, which, as a teenager is just unthinkable. And she would matter-of-factly talk about, this is this device. This is how this works. This is how you put a condom on, things like that. And, it was like sex talk or something with this. And just, there was nothing judgmental, and there was nothing, dare I say, fluid? Not fluid, florid. They make it too pretty when they're explaining things. And she was on for years. And I think we've lost that role. And I know it's a digression from the question, but I think it
follows along.
Well, I also think as I follow this, we've lost not just, there used to be wise women. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As a trope, there used to be wise women in the community who knew shit. And I hate to, I'm swearing because, I'm sorry, I don't normally swear on my show. But
it's true.
But, and that's where you'd go, and there were people you could talk to. And then, religion kind of surpassed that, but they didn't handle it terribly well. And we've so decentralized that
I think that's because most religions are masculine dominated.
It's possible. No, it's very possible. Now, I am a Christian, and I am an unapologetic Christian. However, the vast majority of people, and I may offend some, and I'm okay with that, who I see broadcasting what is allegedly the faith I hold,
Mm-hmm.
have not read the book and have greatly missed the point. And I see it as one of the great tragedies of our time.
Yeah. I like to
Because
address. I
cherry
like to
pick.
go ahead.
What? No,
I'd like to
they,
address something that Jody McPhee said about how if a man cooks, he's shunned unless he's a professional chef. I had the most amazing mother.
yes.
My brothers were taught how to cook a complete meal, and I don't mean grilling on the barbecue. I mean actual cooking in the kitchen. They were taught how to sew in case their clothes needed mending. They were taught about women's cycles.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, was taught male things too.
Yeah.
But my mom's was, I don't want to say she was explicit about sex, but she was very forthcoming about it with all of us.
And yeah, I think that's the best
Due to
way
the fact that her mother wasn't. My mom and dad were high school sweethearts. They planned to get married after mom graduated. Dad had to drop out because farm came first. But they had already planned on marrying after mom got out of high school. Day after graduation, they're getting ready to go down to the courthouse. Grandma Miller comes to mom and has the talk. Now, you know, men have needs. All you have to do is lay there and maybe think of something else, and it'll be over soon. Not knowing my mother was 2 months pregnant at the time. And the story goes that she looked back at her mom and said, "But Mom, it's so much more fun when you move."
And see that I hate to say it, but when we talk sexual education, it's tragic that we don't actually talk about sexual manifestation education. You know, like people really should learn about things like safe words and, you know, consent and things that are out there. You know, because there are men who only understand some of the more elaborate sex things from pornography, which very rarely has any educational quality to it. And then there's many women who I know, because I've always been the guy who has a whole lot of female friends, and then they will literally forget that I'm a guy. This has happened to me. I think it's a height thing. I don't know. But like all the way through school, all the way through high school, through college, the vast majority of the time I was surrounded by women. And people would misinterpret that whole thing all the time too. But I knew women who their entire sexual education came from romance novels.
Oh.
And like Harlequin, but like the dumbed down Harlequin things, where you know you hear the same terms, and it's like, one, you know, I'm sitting there talking. There's so much more out there. I never hesitate for a nice vanilla ice cream. You know, everybody loves vanilla, but you can try sprinkles if you're in the mood, and you should be able to talk about whether you and your partner like sprinkles. You know. But it is
that's like guys getting their sexual education from porno. It's not like that in the real world.
Exactly. And it's so you have these two, and I really truly believe, and I come back to this in the oddest things. Most of our problems, especially as a country, could be fixed by lawmakers understanding the mechanics of what they're making laws about, and the vast majority of the public being educated. And I mean, this goes into abortion, this goes into gun control, goes into any number, religion, any number of things could really be fixed if, like, Miss Frizzle and the Magic School Bus would land in frickin' Congress and take them for a series of field trips. You know, I know that's terrible, but she's probably my favorite Time Lord. Anyway,
The chat's really popping right now.
Oh,
Blue
yeah.
Teddy and Jody and Mike Jimmy. I've been kind of keeping an eye on it. They've been making some excellent points.
Yes. One
know,
point
like
that
the
gets brought up is what's sexualized and what's not. Shirt. Men can be without their shirts, and women can't. And that feeds into one thing that's always bothered me
In America.
No,
in America,
Mike
yeah.
Jimmy says it in Europe also, except on the beach.
Oh yeah.
But it's amazing. I know Michaela has to kind of push me and goad me to being like, hey, I want something a little bit, and that's her books are spicy, so she's got to have the spice.
Right.
Like, we need something just a little bit spicier, and I'm like, okay, because to me it's a kind of a hard thing to pick out. But
well, you also have to. There's what you want to do in life. And literary, what's interesting, even though in real life you never want to actually, like the logistics involved. I love Laurel K. Hamilton, save for a couple tidbits in a couple of her books. Great author. She takes spice to levels, usually with multiple people. And I will read a scene and like half of my mind's like, dang, because it's dang. It just is. And the other half is, how do they, like, you almost start wanting to draw a diagram to figure out the logistics, because it's like, you got 4 dudes on the bed. How? And like, that's where I have this part of my brain that analyzes things. And it's tied to when I teach. But when it goes there, a whole bunch of quasi-emotional functions stop. So it's like, this would be hot, but I can't get over how are they staying balanced? And once it goes there, it doesn't matter. And it's just fascinating. But pulling back from all that, one thing that has bothered me is, you talk about sexualization of women and objectification of women. And I have a friend who's got several kids, and she's breastfed. And they give her shit for it. It's like, you can't do that. She's out, and, you have to be fully covered, and, to pitch a tent. And I have this horrible urge to go, dude, or chick, what do you think they're there for? I mean,
it depends on the attitude of the woman doing it.
Oh, that's okay.
Yes.
I've got a Munsey friend.
Yes.
With a little one. When he wants to eat, she's just that's it.
Yeah.
I've seen women who are like, I'm breastfeeding, and like, no, you're not. You're showing off.
Exactly.
Most women will go to a dressing
room.
If they're in like Walmart, they'll go to a dressing room or into a bathroom. They just won't. I've seen some women just pull, their shirts up right in the middle of an aisle in the middle of a store.
Yeah.
That can be offensive to certain people.
I just make a big show of it. That's But I'm going to look because it's not something I normally see. And when you see something you don't normally see, then you just look. I mean, that's human. That's being human.
I had a friend she liked to flirt with guys and then get mad at them when they looked at her. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The term coquette comes to mind. And I met her I met her when I saw her sword fighting. And I'm like, I want to be part of anything that involves a busty redhead sword fighting. I know. This was me fresh out of college. I was all about it. And, I signed up and some time passed and got lost. I get a call, the club call out for the group is involved. And I come into the cafeteria and I see this brunette next to the redhead. And a gong goes off in my mind. Honest to God, people talk about love at first sight. I looked at her and I leaned over to my buddy. I said, "You see that brunette over there?" He goes, "Yeah. I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life with her. I hope she's nice." And I'm stone serious. I am stone deadly serious. But my wife is very much the short, curvy girl, even then. And her friend, the redhead, was literally 4 measurements, a half inch or a quarter inch from Barbie's measurements.
Ooh.
And, but like 5 foot something. So she was very swell, narrow waist, She ended up marrying a vet because he had doctor in his name and she was built like that, And I wish them the best. I haven't seen them in many years. I hope they're all doing well. But I was my usual cheerful self, and she thought I was flirting with her, and I was not. I was flirting with, Amanda. And Amanda mentioned, well, he was flirting with me, and she's like, "Oh, last thing you need is a freshman following you around." She goes, "I'm single," because my wife is awesome.
Ooh.
But later on, I fenced with the redhead chick. We became friends, and fenced and stuff. But it bugged her that she wasn't the center of attention a lot of times. And there's this one point where I'm sitting, and we're in a mirrored workout room, okay, because that's where we were fencing. And I have 2 mirrors on either side, and I'm tying my shoes. She takes her overshirt off because she's got sports bra, and leans in to tell me something. And this is after I've allegedly gotten in trouble for staring at her. I'm like, "I'm sword fighting with you." "Yes, I stare. I pay attention. This is how you move. This is how I learned how to fight you." It's called paying attention. But she leans in and she's saying something. And it's funny because I'm in a corner and it looks like I've got 6 boobs at eye level, And I'm just sitting there. And unfortunately, they had not met Real Nick yet. Real Nick comes out once in a while. And I looked at her and I went, "Name, they're very nice, but could you please get them off my shoulders?" And, she backed up and flushed. And she's like, "Well, you should have been looking anyway." It's like, there's a changing room across the hall. People forget sometimes that consent to be looked at, please don't stare at me. There's also consent, please don't shove it in my face.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of it, I think if we could get over our hang-up as Americans about the human body, a lot of the BS would go away. And once it's like the way people dress now versus the way they used to dress. In many ways, it's much more revealing, And people just accepted, okay, cool, That to me is progress. Because we should get to the point where, okay, if you want to be naked, fine. Go be naked. It's not hurting anybody. I'm just going to go either, you can't be mad if somebody looks, if you're walking around naked. But, you also can't be mad if people don't look. And it's funny, I see more arguments and more agitation, have my whole life, when I'm not I'm nonplussed about whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody come in, "I am this religion." Okay. I just said I'm this religion. And I said, okay. I hope you should have a good weekend. The weather should be good for a bonfire. How do you know I'm having a bonfire this weekend? Because you said you're this religion, and usually y'all have a bonfire this weekend. Spring's coming. Got to warm things up. I get it. And I think we've developed a culture both for male and female, but especially female. And again, ask if I'm incorrect, enlighten me, because I can take correction. Where shock value is so prevalent And it's like this desire for more and more shocking behavior, more and more extreme, in the stories, like the whole spice conversation. At what point does it start to be like, okay, this is the hot ones, it's so spicy, maybe, the Scoville index is damaging, because I love Laurel K. Hamilton, but there was an arc in one of her novel series where I had to stop reading because you couldn't find the plot because there were so many scenes where it's like, okay, here's some plot, and it's not that I had any problem with the scenes. It's just like I wasn't coming back to it for erotica. I was coming back because I actually cared about the characters and what was going on, and it stopped being in service of the plot. The plot started to be in service of the scenes.
Well, we in a society have just become wanting attention.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a positive or negative, we want attention. And
is part of that though because the parents have become too attentive. They're what they're called helicopter parents now, and so the children are used to being focused upon, and then they get out in the real world and it's not that way out there. Not everybody's focused on you.
Not everybody gets a participation trophy. So you have to do something to get your participation trophy. Sorry, Holly.
Well, no. I interrupted you. No, what Don just said, is right on the money. There's nothing wrong with how do I put it? Let me get back to you. I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Well, I do want to respond to that because I think you make a point, and I have been accused of being a helicopter parent. I know because I'm right, but my son is autistic. He's had behavioral history, and I am trained because that was my job, was working with behavioral autistics. So I tell people this is a whole different universe here. You don't understand. Please don't try to step in where you don't know. But in general, I was a latchkey kid. To the point where I got dropped off one time and the bus driver's like, is there a neighbor's house you can go to? Because there was somebody had killed somebody in the neighborhood and was seen wandering around. And I got let off and I went to stay at a neighbor's house who I barely talked to the whole time we lived there. And these very begrudging but kind old folks let me in. But, and we saw the dude walk by. But, there was this extreme of, you had to be independent. And I hate to say it, but if you're poor, you have to be mentally flexible. And I went through points where I was very poor when I was out on my own, I was extremely poor. And that, I tell people, you can pull the poor out of the boy, you can pull the boy out of the poor, but not the poor out of the boy. So, I always had furniture, I always had stuff, and they're like, where did you get this? Well, that was thrown away. That's actually like a wire conduit holder, but, once your mind clicks over, you're constantly repurposing and plotting and twisting, and, everything has a different, almost survivalish, mentality because I had to learn it. And we keep swinging to these extremes where you go to a school and the vast majority of the time kids are really well, in most schools, a couple of the ones I worked at, they weren't, but relatively behaved, but they don't respect authority because authorities never come down on them. There's been authority without discipline. And we had almost discipline without authority. If you goofed up, if it was the kind of neighborhood where everybody talked, you might get your butt whooped by the neighbor and then by the next neighbor, and then by one parent, then the other, not condoning or condemning or talking about corporal punishment, but it was like everybody was in on it.
If you did something, your friends, whichever parent caught it, You were all getting in trouble.
Oh yeah,
That's
Yeah.
how we were.
That's
But
Not
Nick,
that we did the camera wrong.
Nick, you say you're a helicopter parent. However,
I've been accused of.
you don't focus all your attention on your son. You're here, and we heard you just a little while ago saying, "Sorry, Betty, I'm broadcasting," and he left, which was a very polite thing for him to do. Unlike somebody else who is not teaching her child politeness and allowing the child to interrupt her broadcasting.
That's now. Xander knows if he needs anything to interrupt my
Mhm.
show, and he has at different points.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's because he has misheard, even though I have the door closed, he's misheard what's going on, and he's
Mhm.
genuinely worried. Or if I get too emphatic, he thinks I'm yelling at somebody. And there have been a couple times he actually sat in on a large chunk of Nerd Bacon once,
Mhm.
which of the shows I'm in, that's the least one I'd want him to sit in on. But okay, you know. And they were
Don't have
all
him come into the green room.
No.
no.
I
But
was
yeah.
joking. I was
No,
joking.
no. But you know what? In some ways, I would have rather been in the green room because I know everything would have down. But people surprised me. They really did in how some of the rowdiest people were actually really mellow all the time. You know, at the time, and everybody handled it really well. And I've had to work very hard to get this. This is also the only adult conversation that I get because I'm basically a shut-in.
Mm-hmm.
With medical stuff and vehicle stuff and Xander, especially during the winter, I don't get to go places. So a lot of people don't know. I moved down here in 2018. Between 2018 and 19, I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. And they ended up putting me on a breathing machine. But during that time, I wasn't allowed to drive anymore because I'd fallen asleep talking to my wife mid-sentence at 72 miles an hour. Da-da-da-da-da. Ow. And she woke me up, and, that's what happened. But I was stuck at home for all of 2019. I couldn't go out. I couldn't go swimming, couldn't go anywhere. I'm like, good Lord, at least 2020 is coming. So I went into lockdown after essentially a year of lockdown already. Having just moved down to a new house where I knew no one because Mandy got a job. So shows like this, and I don't mind talking about it publicly because I play my cards on the table. You want to know me, what you see is what you get. Are what allow me interaction. And we were talking earlier about the ripples. It's why I take it so seriously, because what Ryan K. Morris did was he gave me a place to talk, and people to interact with that I would not have had. And from that, I met Luke Stone. We did a bunch of things. I've got game contracts, did a bunch of things. I've met all you guys. The vast majority of my social network has come from Nevermind the Furthermore in the Luke Stone days. And I'm not Luke Stone days, I'm sorry, Brian K. Morris. And then I went to Luke Stone and I did a show with him, and I have a whole network of very, very conservative people who I love dearly, even if I politically disagree with them on a lot of things. Hush, Witzman, dude. See, you've been hushed. But I find it fascinating how this little service can bring people together. And we have been going for just under 3 hours. And my dear friends are all very tired, and most of us have sore butts and won't say it because we've been able to get up. It has been delightful. And I could talk till my voice fell out, and then I'd hold up a whiteboard. But I think we need to let these ladies have an option to go. So I think what we'll do is we'll go around the room. and I will try to bring people up, and you tell where you can be reached, where you want to do your stuff, and then we'll just close out the show. Okay? We'll start with Donna.
My name is Donna Carlene. My books are available on Lulu.com. Also Barnes & Noble and Amazon, but I'd prefer you go to Lulu because I get a bigger cut. I mean, that's just it. I write lots of different books, and for some reason I'm known as the sex lady. And that's all I have to say.
Hi. I
know the sex lady's hard to follow.
Well, for what I do, I mean, you can go to authormichaelajade.com because I represent her on a lot of stuff. I'm getting tired, I think. If you go to Facebook to Michaela's Mercenaries, that's where you can find a lot of her stuff, and that's where I do post a lot of stuff for her on her behalf. Let's see here. Me personally, I mean, with the way that I'm feeling right now, I know I can't do what I want to do for everybody. But if you ever needed to get a hold of me, I do have an email address. It's ddoulis, B as in boy, P as in Paul, A as in apple @yahoo.com. But you can usually find me on a lot of the shows that have to do with Rising Tide. I kind of, because I'm home a lot, I'm here a lot.
What?
So
okay. Before I lose you on the big screen, you mentioned a little bit of some ideas, and we talked about how your cats had inspired ideas. Start writing those down, please. Trust me, the odds of you making too much as an author to violate, your government concerns are probably very unlikely. Anyone else, this would be, not be encouraging, but I wouldn't be too worried about that. And, you have good stories, and there's so much going. You're one of those people who the gears are always turning, and I find those people fascinating. And I'm like, I need to get in these conversations and look under the hood a little bit and find out what you're about. So this has been delightful. Okay.
Well, thank you. I have had fun.
Good.
Hey guys, I'm going to make it kind of short and sweet. To follow everything under the Atomic Press banner, my current and upcoming projects, as well as new authors involved with Atomic Press, just go to Facebook, it's been a long day. Just go to Facebook, Pulp Works, Kelly Austin author for all of that info. And that's pretty much it for me.
All right, ladies, I want to thank you so much for coming on and giving me the kind of perspective, and everyone the perspective of women in the business and in the limelight a little bit. It's not talked about enough. I want to do more panels like this.
You can
because
probably
they're
work something out.
interesting people like you who have perspectives that aren't maybe expressed enough. So thank you all. Thank you all for
Thank you for having us.
yes.
Thank you
for being here. The chat was amazing. I did follow most of it. I just couldn't. I couldn't comment because I really didn't want to interrupt the ladies. So, folks, thank you. I hope you've had a wonderful day. Now, everyone else who's in the chat, please go out there and write something, create something, because you can fix it, you can improve it, you can make things better, but at the end of the day, you can't edit a blank page. I will see you Thursday for Nerd Bacon over on Luke Stone Studios channel. Be prepared for a conservative perspective from most of my people, and it can be a little, it's supposed to be safe for work, but it does slip once in a while. And I'll be right back here Friday for yet another episode of Nevermind the Furthermore. It will just be my lonesome, so it will not be nearly this entertaining, but I will do my best. You guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you all very soon.